I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Roll call. Ooh, an echo.
Echo. Okay, testing. Okay, it's not happening. Councilmember Riddell Harris. Here. Davis. Here. Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Holmes.
Present.
Mayor Amara.
Present. Stand for the pledge, please. Councilman Holmes.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the next item is the mayor's commendation, proclamation, and acknowledgements, and there are nothing for this evening, so we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. This is the time set aside for council members and/or the public to ask for removal, postponement, or a change to the listed sequence of an agenda item. The agenda will be approved by consensus of the council. Council, anyone want to change the agenda?
No.
Public? May I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda. The consent agenda, all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. And I think legal has an item that he wants to discuss before we move on.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. There is a brief oral report as required by the Brown Act for one of your consent item agendas this evening. That's consent item 10, which is an employment agreement with Tia Klump for planning director. It provides for a base salary of $140,000 per year with leave and benefits in line with other department heads. And I am happy to answer any other questions should you have any.
So I think we've all received the backup, but if there's any other questions from council or public? Okay, do I have, council want to remove any items from the consent calendar?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to remove item number 13.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone from the public would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? Okay, can I have a motion for the consent calendar absent item number 13?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second. Roll call. Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Mayor Amara.
Yes, thank you very much. Item number 13, Tenant Improvement Economic Assistance Grant. That is a program established and program has guidelines which our director will address. But Alice, Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo, did you have some questions?
I did. First, I wanted to thank staff, Sean and Jonathan, for bringing this forward. I have been talking about this. We had that economic development expert come and speak to our business associations. And I know that this came up as an opportunity to utilize these defederalized CBDG monies for economic development purposes. And I'm 100% in support of doing that. I originally thought about perhaps having a zero interest loan. What I really want is I want a sustainable program so that we can benefit as many businesses as possible. And this pot's a very small one right now. I think in all with the, we've got $166,000, give or take now, and there's another 170 or 30,000 that's still out there, right? The budget, you sent me the numbers, but under $350,000, right? So I know that those will eventually, once they're paid back in the 2030s, we'll have a little bit more money then for the program. But my thought is just that a $40,000 grant I'd like to be able to benefit as many businesses as possible. We had something similar years ago, a facade improvement program. It was very small. I wouldn't definitely go back to that number. Plus, I understand that we're trying to navigate the prevailing wage rates and so forth, and I respect that too. And that's why I liked how we worded this. The monies would be utilized for non-construction purposes. So I like that also. But I just wondered, and I kind of wanted just to talk to my colleagues a little bit about whether or not we thought, $40,000 was the right number, or 30,000. With 160,000, we could fund, I didn't do the math, but we could do eight, 7 or 8. You don't have to ask for 40, but who wouldn't? Because it's just, economic development dollars. So I wanted to just, I'd like to be able to see 2 things. I'd love this to be a sustainable program. And so I want to go on the record to say that I would like to, in the coming years, even if it's $10,000, I'd like to be able to continue to put money in this account to help our businesses. We've got a lot of vacancies. We are going to talk about the vacant building ordinance and so forth. And if we're able to help, and these are CBDG dollars, if we're able to help in addition, I'd like to be able to do that. So I'd like this to be a sustaining program and not just once the monies are spent, it's gone. And 2, I just want to kind of discuss if we think that the $40,000 amount is what everybody wants to do. I don't know. Again, this is a Brown Act, so we don't have an opportunity to really talk about this. This is the first time we've talked about it. Or whether or not we want to lower the amount and give more folks an opportunity to benefit.
I think that's a legitimate question. Can we hear from the director as to how that number was arrived at?
Sure. Jonathan Wright, Economic Development Director. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. So in talking to local businesses, as you know, we're going to go on to discuss vacant buildings here very soon. And looking at the ones that we have had significant investment in, I mean, these are cornerstone developments that are happening. In fact, one of them I would dare say is the most money we've had invested in that part of town in decades. And so as they're doing it, these are local entrepreneurs that have embedded themselves in the community and wanted to really take heart and do something of their own. And so this is what they've done. They're going to make a difference. And as they're going through these processes, things like cost change, there's the unforeseen, expense of this or that, or things that change throughout the process. So in talking to them, there's a need out there, and that need, the amount that I put together working with city manager was based off the need that's currently there. And that's for, we have a handful of really, unique and distinct buildings and different types of businesses that are being developed. And so it came based off that number. It's not enough for one. It probably is enough for another one, but it was based off the need.
And again, can you remind us there's specific criteria for people to apply, like 3 years, I believe, and
Right.
it's used for.
It has to be 3 years. They have to have a tenant improvement permit RDN process that is at least a value of $100,000 or more. Tenant improvement, just the inside of the structure. There's most likely going to be additional costs with shell. If you think about and I'm sure some of the people in the audience can attest to it that actually own buildings to do this. $100,000 is your permit cost that you're attesting to there, but you've already spent $30,000 on your architect and design work. You've already, TI doesn't include some of the fixtures that go in there. This is just how much you're going to invest in renovating the building to get that thing going. So it's matched with a significant amount of investment in those buildings. So it is tailored to a very unique sector of the buildings here, because first of all, it has to be vacant. We're going to talk about vacant buildings. It may be an opportunity for somebody with a vacant building to do this themselves. And it's trying to pair that money that we have with need, because CDBG is based off of small business development. This pool of money is based off of small business development. We've used it in the past for small business development. And at this point, with the amount of things that are going on economically around us and the amount of investment, we just tried to meet that need.
Thank you. So I'd like to hear other council members want to weigh in on this, have an opinion. I mean, I certainly do.
I love the idea. I'd love to see it go further too. I wish we had more money to be able to invest in these kinds of things. I think it's great. I think that's part of the reason why we were trying to get the new building code in place to make it easier and less costly to
Form-based
do
code.
these kinds of improvements through the form-based code. So whatever we can do to make that improvement, I know you are all, I mean, we try to be in touch with what's going on in the community, but I know you guys are talking on a daily basis to folks. So if you think this is the right amount, I trust staff's recommendation that this is the amount that we should be giving. But I also want us to kind of think, are there ways that we can do more to help our businesses to be able to do those tenant improvements and to be able to do facade improvements? Because I know how important that is to everybody.
Okay. Councilman Holmes, Councilwoman Davis, if you have something to say. I'm in support. I personally support the 40,000. I think I do appreciate what you're saying, and I just think if you've assessed the need, and I think 40,000 goes pretty fast. But in any case, I certainly understand that, you know, it would be nice to spread it out even more, but maybe in the future.
Well, Madam Mayor, I appreciate, again, this was an item on consent, and I really felt it was something that I wanted to hear from my colleagues on the amount and to have a dialogue about that. I do understand that there is a need, you know, what maybe what we could do is for, you know, again, I'd like to see this as a sustainable, ongoing program. I really do. I don't want it just to spend all the money and go away. So maybe we can, for the first year, if we set it for 40,000, and then let's take a look at it in a year, and because we might be able to put some more money into it, and we can really reevaluate what's happening in the, you know, in the community then. You know, I think I would feel comfortable with that.
I like that idea. I think that's a great idea. Reassess it. Maybe it'll be more. We'll give maybe less. So that's,
And then having that opportunity to, like I said, put additional dollars in there. And,
Yeah.
you know, I know, you know, $40,000 today does not go as far as it did 30 years ago or 40 years ago. I do appreciate that. So, you know, I'll support the 40,000 for this year. And then if we can just bring this back in a year to reassess, and hopefully there'll still be a little bit of something still in there so that we can.
okay. Any input from the public? Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we, by resolution, approve the establishment of the Tenant Improvement and Economic Assistant Grant Program and authorize the city manager to expend the funds in accordance with the program guidelines, and then to bring this back in 1 year for a reassessment.
Second.
Roll call, Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Mayor Amara.
Yes, thank you very much. That passes. And public comment. This is the time provided so that the public may speak to the council on any item not on the agenda. Please make your comments as brief as possible, not to exceed 3 minutes. The council cannot act on items not included on this agenda. Items may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. So I would like to say, don't forget, we have the 4th of July coming up. We have downtown has a very nice, the chamber is putting on a wonderful event. Make sure you go to that. I think it's from 2 on. There's a parade in the morning, and then we have the fireworks. And this has been a lot of time by staff and our city manager, so thank you for doing that. So make sure you support all of our events for the 4th of July. And anyone else? Yes.
I just want to share that Western States is coming through this weekend. Sorry.
That was going to be mine.
Maybe you can add to it.
Yes.
So it comes through Saturday into Sunday. The first finishers usually come between 7 and 8 p.m. down at the football field. And the golden hour is from 10 to 11 a.m. on Sunday. That's when the last finishers are like pushing through at their 30-hour mark. So both all around the clock, it's super cool to see. And local folks, we're encouraging to come by bike. We'll have bike valet set up so you can park your bike with us.
I was going to add that.
Yeah.
Ride your bike down.
Bike.
So Councilwoman Dowden Cavia?
Yeah, I was just, I echo that. Western States is in the house, so looking forward to that. The Endurance Capital Committee will have a booth at the finish line on both Saturday and Sunday as well. And I think it's going to be great weather for the runners this year, so it's going to be an interesting race.
Hot, I heard.
Well, a little bit cooler though. So it's not like 115 or something, you know, it's normally pretty hot. So very much looking forward to that. And there's just so much going on. We had so much going on last weekend and our community, we're so blessed to have such great nonprofits and just community organizations and doing fun things.
And thank you. I think we've all attended a lot of
Yeah.
the events. So, Councilman Holmes?
Yes, thank you. I attended a event at the Carnegie Library last week, and what? Oh, yes. But I am trying to develop a program to apply for a grant, since that building is on the National Register of Historic Places, that we could apply for a grant that would cover most of the cost of upgrading that and putting a elevator system in there and other things as well. And I'd like to know how much the city has already spent on making improvements in that building, so that if there's a cost sharing requirement, that we have some idea how much money the city has contributed toward that project.
Thank you. I'm sure staff will get back to you on that, but it's been substantial. Okay, any other?
One more event. Yeah.
One more event.
Sorry. There's one more event on Saturday is the A-Town Classic, which is the skateboard in Old Town skateboard event in the afternoon. So it'll be fun. They go down the hill really fast.
I'll add something. It's not in town. It's down in Roseville, but the Placer County Fair is going on right now, and there's a lot of youth that have been working really hard to raise their animals and put them out and sell them at auction. So I encourage everyone to go see all of the events, exhibits, all those things. I know I've been talking to a lot of 4-Hers recently who've been working really hard. So I encourage you all to go down there. It should be cooler than normal. Knock on wood. Thanks.
Okay, any public comment from the public? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we will move on to our public hearing and a presentation by staff, vacant commercial building ordinance and application fee resolution. Do we have a presentation now or no? We're reopening the hearing from the June 9th, 2025. And we're going to, this is asking to reintroduce and waive first reading of an ordinance creating a vacant commercial building ordinance for the city of Auburn. And then there's an ask by resolution to adopt fees related to the vacant commercial building ordinance. I just want to say the city discussed this, the city council discussed this. We had public hearing last week. We're reopening it. And I would like our staff, would you like to give a report?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Jonathan Wright, Economic Development Director. So this is technically the third time this has been seen in public through this process before the city council. If you'll recall with me, I think it was around this time last year. I don't know, Councilmember Davis was not here yet. That there was a discussion about the vacant buildings, what could be done about vacant buildings. There's a point brought up about a possibility of a vacancy tax and what that might look like. And from that came direction to staff to move forward with some type of ordinance that would help try to motivate those property owners to rent out those buildings, to make the improvements that need to be done, and to not just have vacant retail spaces scattered throughout town. I do want to note in here that there was a typo that was discovered, and that is on page 12. It says license violation, it's actually just going to say violation. So we're going to go ahead and strike that. Per the direction of the city council, after the last meeting, I did have a number of discussions with different property owners here. I reached out to some that had, let's just say, known vacancies and had, like I said, several discussions. The major concerns that come out of that, besides the fact that we're doing this, is the economic standpoint. There's a belief that by doing this, we are going to be hurting investment in town, that they will somehow, property owners, or that they will not be able to sell properties because people will not want to buy them because of these restrictions. I would say to that just like Councilor Dowden Calvillo just brought up, is maybe looking at a like a 1-year reset on this and revisiting it just to allow it just to start and take place. The time frame for registration was the other one. We heard that the last time. Many felt that 90 days was too short. To that, I would say, well, we could consider a longer time frame. We've discussed why it makes it a little bit more difficult, but it's at the council's discretion on setting that. So if it was to say be 180 days or, half a year, that's entirely up to you. But that was another point that was raised by some of the property owners. The only thing is I would say to that is if that is the direction of council in this, that we keep the 90 days for the existing vacancies and just do that to the half a year to the new vacancies that would happen after this ordinance was adopted, because obviously we have some work to do. This concludes my staff report.
Yeah, and then one thing that I thought was added that I didn't see last time was a specific number for the registration fee. So I misread it last time. I thought it was $5,000 to register, but it's not. It's only, well, not only, but it's $338
Per quarter, they have to
Per
register.
quarter. Per quarter,
As they work to get it occupied, it would be per quarter.
And that is that's based strictly on staff time.
Right.
2 hours at $169 an hour.
Correct. It's not a
Okay.
tax, it's a fee reimbursing staff's time to implement the program, do the checkups that would be required, and ensure that the program's working and going forward.
And then the other thing I want to make clear is that if a building is being improved, so they're working on it,
Correct.
then they're exempt.
Technically, they need to have a permit to be working on the building or to have one that's already in occupiable state and in good condition in order to just register. Otherwise, it requires that they do something,
Okay.
i.e. get a permit to start doing the improvements and things that need to happen to put that structure back into something that's habitable for occupancy.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, okay, thank you. With that, council, what is your,
I have a question.
okay, question?
Yeah.
And I just want to preface this. We've all, again, looked at this. We've all asked a lot of questions. Just want the public to know that, we're been discussing this for quite a while. So, but in any case, go ahead.
So I wanted to talk about page 423, which is section 12408. And that's the section where you deleted the word license. It says violation. That section, it's confusing to me because the ordinance itself says that within 90 days, you have 14 days to register. So you have to register and you have to pay your $338.
Right.
And this section here talks about a property owner shall not permit space to be vacant for more than 90 days unless they establish by substantial evidence these various things.
Right.
But what's not clear to me is that, does that mean that they can then be vacant? Because we cannot require a business to rent. And so this section is just confusing because it sounds like we're saying, well, you can be vacant for 90 days, but do they not have to register then? I'm just a little bit, it's just not clear for me.
If the building is actively being maintained, meets the criteria that's listed out here, then it would just be subject to the registration fee.
So,
And that it could remain vacant under those circumstances because you can't, as you said, force somebody to
Right.
So the way this is written, though, it's, to me, it's confusing. And, you know, I've spent a lot of my life reading ordinances and policy and so forth. And it's confusing to me because it sounds like perhaps something different can happen with these folks. If they're actively renting, you know, because we can't, like I said, we have to permit everybody to have a vacancy for 90 days. But this says they shall not permit something to be vacant for more than 90 days unless they do X, Y, and Z. But we're not telling everyone else they shall not, or that they have to. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's a
Right.
little bit confusing.
Maybe
Is
we
this
can
section-
we have the attorney weigh in on this?
Yes, and
Yeah.
so Gary, maybe you can,
Yeah, happy to. So these are two separate requirements. So the first part of the ordinance is about registration. And so that's triggered within the time frame currently in there. You see the number, you all might come up with a different one this evening, but that registration requirement is triggered after that certain number of days. This section is about enforcement. And it's about if you, for longer than 90 days, do not do one of these things, it becomes a violation of the code. And that's where code enforcement comes in, where your code enforcement officer or planning and building director or your economic director might choose to start issuing fines, for example, even if someone is registered under the program. If they're not meeting one of these A or B requirements, it would be a violation of the code. So it becomes an enforcement matter at that point. And so that's why it's worded the way that it is. You shall not do it unless, so that it creates a prohibition in the law and then has carve outs if you comply.
but the carve out is simply that you don't have to pay the vacant monitoring fee, which is to be determined, or a boarding permit fee unless you're going to board it up. I guess if that's the case, then it seems like the ordinance should be worded, something should say enforcement or something there. It's just confusing to me. And I just think if it's confusing to me, it might be confusing to others.
Can we add enforcement to the heading?
Certainly can. Yeah. So just to flesh that out a bit on the fee piece. So once a property is registered, let's just assume it's 90 days because that's what's in your ordinance, but you all might change it. Once it's registered under the 90 days, it cannot be vacant for more than 90 days without violating the code and therefore potentially being an enforcement matter unless one of these things is met in the section that we're
It
discussing.
needs to be,
right now.
it would need to be worded like that. And I have other things to say about that, but it was just, like I said, that section was
Yeah.
confusing to me because I'm of the impression that if they are complying with these items, that maybe they don't need to do anything.
So what is that, what attorney said, is that sufficient then? Adding enforcement to it?
Well, I think that Gary, you actually suggested like there was language. It wasn't just an enforcement. Whatever you said actually made sense.
Mhm.
But what my thing is that I would, in my opinion, if a property owner was doing these things, I would like them not to have to register.
Okay.
So then that's separate. That's a
That's
different
separate.
issue.
Yeah,
So,
That's
Yeah, that is separate, a different issue, and that could be another subsection in that section. Meaning if you are meeting these things, you would not have to register.
I mean, maybe you register, but you don't have to pay the fee. I just think that I have concerns about this. And I know we're just asking questions now, so I'm gonna,
Yes.
you don't want me to,
Yeah, if
comment.
we could just keep
so,
it to questions.
so anyway, I'll just reserve my comments, but I did have a question. That was a question I needed clarified.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly could with the regulatory fee, just on that point. Because it's a regulatory fee, it could be something that's waived or not charged under certain circumstances. So, hand back over.
Yeah, I mean, because I would like to make a suggestion perhaps. Would you not want me to say that now?
Wait, I think Director Wright has something to say.
I just
too.
want to note for the record, your comment at the last hearing about having a checklist and having that be developed as part of this has been noted by staff, and that would be something we could include to help that flow.
So,
yes, you have a suggestion?
yeah, well, I was just going to say that maybe what we can do is maybe if they register the first time and then we add language to say that if they're complying with this provision, they're doing these things, they've established by substantial evidence these items, that they don't have to pay a quarterly fee. Maybe they pay once, but they report, but without having to pay a fee. Now, what I don't want to have happen is that the city is spending money. We can't have this can't be cost prohibitive for the city in that we need to be able to,
I think that
have
might,
that.
might be the danger.
well, I don't know. So I wanted to ask, I mean, I wanted to explore some flexibility for those property owners that are doing their best. They're showing evidence that they're complying with these provisions. You know, I'm just looking at some flexibility.
Right.
And maybe it's just a one, you know, you register, but then you just report quarterly, but you're not having to pay that quarterly fee. If they're not paying that quarterly fee, is that going to be detrimental to the city? Is the city going to then incur costs that we're not going to be able to recoup for?
There, part of the cost that was in there was to include the monitoring that would be required because we had to know that this quarter's up and that person hasn't come in. Reviewing the reporting that they would be putting in, so they would be turning that into us, make sure that none of the circumstances have changed. I mean,
Maybe they can report just once a year then, or no, I don't want it once a year. We want them to have somebody in there by then. I'm just looking
Right.
for some flexibility
right,
for those actors that are truly, you know, the market is difficult and property owners don't dictate the market.
Right.
Property owners, for the most part, I want to believe, want to put tenants in their buildings. And they want to put the right tenants in their buildings. Now, when it goes for years and years, there may be other things in play. But I'm
See,
trying to look at that
I
flexibility.
certainly hear what you say. And I guess I'm looking at the commercial properties that are not interested in putting tenants in their building. I mean, there are storefronts that, you know, basically are just storage. So they're not interested in putting tenants in the building, and that does not help our downtown or the vitality of our town. There are properties that are so create such a hardship for people to invest or to lease that they're not really, they need some incentive to make it so that it's affordable for this area, I think. I think there's those cases. Now, there are some cases where you'll have commercial property that, you know, will sit and they're looking for the right tenant. But again, I just trust that people will, you know, the people that want to rent out their commercial property, I think are going to do that. And people that aren't, hopefully will be motivated a little bit by this. And again, I hear what you're saying. My only concern is that, you know, if we're going to do this, let's see, I think Director Wright had the right idea. Get that? Right idea, of course. But anyway, so let's look at it for a year and see how it goes. I think I've heard a lot of constituents down in Auburn area who are very supportive of this. There are some people who are not supportive, and they've showed up, and I hear them. But I think there's other jurisdictions that have done this, and do you know if they've been successful?
I've personally done it in a town and had it be successful to drive those legacy tenant or legacy owners that otherwise didn't want to do anything with their properties to have to do something with them. And some of them sold because they didn't want to deal with it, which still actually helped remedy the situation because the next people were making significant investments in the community.
So I don't know where go ahead. Councilwoman.
Thank you. So I get what both of my fellow council members are saying. I think that we've talked a lot about how there are members of the community who have been talking to us a lot about the commercial buildings that are vacant and have been for a very long time. And it doesn't seem like the owners have any interest in actually filling them with actual businesses. And I've heard from business owners who would love to move, and there's not a good spot for them to move to because of that. I also know there's some property owners who do a really good job and really want to fill with the right tenants, and that takes a while. So I've heard both sides. One of the things that came up last time is we had some property owners that came in that had not really heard about this much before and you hadn't gotten a lot of feedback from. And we asked you to go back and talk with some of those property owners so that way they could give us suggestions, because we're not expert, or at least I'm not an expert on commercial buildings and renting them to tenants. And so I was curious what came out of that. We asked them to specifically tell us what they would suggest to do, because we need to, the answer of doing nothing is probably not the correct answer. But if there's a better solution that we have from anybody else, I'd be totally open to hearing it. Did we get any suggestions from others on what they would suggest?
I did not go door to door. I did hit several after the meeting or during the meeting, and talked to a few after that. But like I said, the suggestion was the time frame is too short for registration because of the reasons you pointed out.
Did they have a number that they liked better?
They didn't. They were kind of taken aback by the fact we were doing this and that, this was going to be difficult for them to find a tenant in that amount of time. You do have a comment in the record here of somebody who submitted before I actually completed the staff report, so that's in there. I believe she references the extension to 180 days as well, if I can recall correctly.
I think the main reason is because we're getting feedback that from some community members that want us to do this, and we don't want to ignore all the other members of the community that
Right.
own businesses. We want both sides to come to some kind of decision. And so I just want to make sure both sides are being heard and that we're using as much input as we can to come up with the right solution.
The problem we have is we have two different types of vacancies here. We have some that are vacant and available, but have been found to be difficult to get into, or because of community perception, it's been a deterrent to go to. That's been difficult to, because those are some of my main vacancies here. Then we have the other type of vacancy, which is that legacy person that's holding on to property and not investing to make it so that it can be re-rented or making efforts to even find a tenant for those. That's a different type of property. Crafting an ordinance that covers all those things was the task. And so that's why we came up with something that's broad enough that you can apply it to both sides. If it's the council's direction to come back with an ordinance just specifically for the legacy ones, let's say that have been vacant for over 3 years, something like that we could put into play, that would be a different ordinance. But the direction that was given was to craft it for all those different vacancy types, especially, we get called out on the ones that are available quite a bit,
So
which aren't a lot.
before we make our decision, it might be helpful if we heard from the public too. Then,
And Mr.
oh, Councilman Holmes? We're gonna come back.
I'm also a member of the public.
I
but,
understand that.
Well, my concern is that we've got a number of buildings in Auburn that, like the Livingston Building, the former Montgomery Ward Building, and some others that have office space upstairs, not on the street level. And I'm wondering if we're looking at those as well. And then there are a couple of, one particular property owner owns both of those buildings. And whether we've tried to talk to them at all directly.
We have. And this would apply to all those different scenarios.
So if a building has 10 office spaces and 8 of them are full, but the 2 are not, are they still subject to,
Any vacancy longer than 90 days would be subject to this ordinance. Now, again, we've stated this before. We're a small organization. We're not out actively policing these things. So we are complaint driven. We are going after those nuisances that we hear from the community are a real issue.
and
But
what
I
kind of,
have no idea of even knowing if there's like a building that has 12 spaces, we may not even know that there's 11 rented and 1 open.
And if you look in the definition, it talks about multi-tenancy and strip malls and those types of
what's
things.
that?
If you look in the definition, there is a definition that describes multi-tenancy and strip malls or individual applicants. I mean, each storefront
Each storefront.
or office space.
And does that mean they have to be on the,
You?
on a street,
It would apply to any commercial space,
whether it's on, if it's not a storefront.
even if it's not a storefront.
Okay,
I mean, the real push was for storefronts, hearing from the community because it was the most apparent.
yeah.
But you brought up the situation of if there's something else out there and it's vacant, could that be would they have to apply? They would have to apply too if it became a nuisance to somebody reporting it.
Yeah. All right, well.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to hear, would you like?
Yeah,
to-
sorry, and
Okay,
and I don't
we'll
know
be
if this-
back, and I want to make it clear, we'll be back for discussion, but go
Sure.
ahead.
So I don't know if it's an attorney question or not. So that just this provision, where you can, under the violations is if it's being actively offered for sale or lease. I mean, I think a lot of the vacant buildings right now do have signs for sale or lease. How do they work? How does that work with enforcement if it's for sale for too high of a cost or they're not accepting offers?
I don't think this ordinance speaks to the rent, the amount of rent and the offer. So if they were,
They're, you
so
know,
under
the
your,
sign, but they're not.
yeah, so under your hypothetical here, if they were registered and followed that process and we're doing the quarterly renewals and quarterly registrations, and then we're also holding it out actively for leasing, they would be in compliance with this section and the other sections of the
Got
code.
it. Okay, so they're in compliance, but okay.
They're still registered, they're still paying the quarterly fee, staff is still monitoring it, so.
Councilwoman Davis raises a interesting question, because if you have buildings that are for sale and or lease, then how does that fit? Because I could argue my building's for sale or it's for lease. So I would say, no, it's for sale. I mean, so how does this ordinance address that?
It's for legal.
Well, so we didn't put in here what the evidence required for that. So it would be required that they would need to show sufficient evidence that it is in fact being leased or offered for sale, offered for lease or offered for sale. And so, and like any other violation of the code, staff's going to look at what's presented, what evidence there is.
But the
determine-
sign says for sale or lease. I mean, the
Yeah.
sign says,
No, I think if there's a sign up and it says it's for sale or lease, I think that would meet that requirement. Yes.
so then it wouldn't be subject to this ordinance.
No, it wouldn't be a violation of the
Right.
ordinance. It would
But they
still
would
need to
have to
register,
register
still
still.
doing the quarterly registration, still do the quarterly fees, but
Even
you
though it's
wouldn't,
for sale.
And
even though it's for sale. Yes.
And at some point, they're going to decide that registering this thing over and over again, maybe they should look at the cost because we did make it labor intensive and that was part of the purpose.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll open it up to the public and then come back to the council. And we have received some public comment on this matter.
Okay, if you're going to open it to the public, then come back and have comments. Can we come back and comment?
Well, we're going to deliberate after.
So after public comments, you're not going to have a round of questions that might generate more desire to comment.
I suppose you can comment again.
Well,
Yes.
It'll just be determined by the
No?
Madam Mayor,
Uh,
your determination.
Yeah, that is, I would say the same thing. It's at the council, your decision as a council whether or not to reopen public comment on an item like this.
Okay.
Brown Act and your agenda requires 3 minutes per item per public comment.
Well, I would like to comment after you've re-commented.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mappa. Any other public comment now? Yes. I think we have someone.
Hi, Harry Anderson. I don't live in Auburn. I live in Colfax. I'm a territory manager for Michelin Tire Corporation, and I travel from Winnemucca, Nevada to Davis and from Reading to Stockton. And I'm here to tell you there's a lot of vacant commercial property, a ton. Being that a store has an overhead, fixed rent, electricity, God knows what that is anymore with PG&E, water, taxes, payments. I just hope that there's an interview process, and I apologize if it's already been discussed that way, but I would think that it's a case over case situation. If you have a blanket policy after there's been an interview process to find out what's going on with the property, that would certainly make sense. But I really don't think anybody wants to have a vacant piece of property. They're usually an investment for business. And so with the business climate in California and the horrors that we're dealing with, the reputations about California, a lot of people aren't really moving here to do business. So what business you have, if you're trying to throttle them, it puts it in a position that you just want to go, you know what, I'm done. And in the tire business, what we're finding is there's a lot of family-owned businesses where the children don't want to take over the business. So now they have to sell this thing. And I'm here to tell you, a tire store is not a fun thing to buy. Not anymore. So they're looking for deals, and the people that are buying them are deal oriented. And I don't know about you folks, but if you've seen a lot of tire stores that have been taken over, the landscaping, the way they take care of these businesses, it's horrible. So to me, maybe there's a way to try to promote vacant property on the city's behalf. You know, if you market it as, you know, this is the place to be, because you certainly don't want to be down on, well, where's the worst of it? Watt Avenue, Fulton, Marconi. I mean, I have to go down there and I just shake my head. I cannot even believe what that place has turned into. Carmichael was a beautiful place at one time. It's horrible. And he talks about empty Montgomery wards. Well, they fixed the problem in Grass Valley. The Kmart parking lot was empty forever. The only thing that happened good there was the donut company and the classic cars on Saturday morning. They finally, Target finally moved in. And that was enough of a draw to get more people coming there. And if you have a business, you're going to get some just by accident because there's more people. So my only thought about it is if it's important to have an image, and certainly you don't want to see a lot of vacancies, but at the same time, what's the city's responsibility to try to market the city? You know, why do you want to come to Auburn? You're business friendly, et cetera, et cetera. And if you do the right kind of marketing, I'm here to tell you, after 43 years of doing it, for some strange reason, it works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor. So I have
Just
some
state your, just for the record, your name and.
Cinnamon Pryor, my address
Well, you're from.
from Auburn. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Longtime resident, business owner, property owner in Auburn. And I think my main concern starting out is the lack of transparency. In that whenever there's a planning commission hearing, if there's a liquor license that we're issuing, there's all types of mailings that are going out. There was no mailing that was sent out to the property owners, and we're directly impacted. And to your point that there's a lot of community concern, I don't see any community members that I'm aware of here. If I'm mistaken on that, I apologize, but I would think that there would be, as with the last meeting, some community members here speaking out in regard to their concern. But so the city cites an increase in vacancies. We can all see that there are vacancies in Auburn. But to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been any supporting data to provide for what that vacancy rate is in Auburn. Residents and property owners, you know, we would like to see some data-driven explanation for the policy that you're considering. So my ask is, what is the current commercial vacancy rate in Auburn, and how have we seen it changed over the past 5 years? The other concern I have is in regard to the utility termination requirements. I find that to be counterproductive. Forcing property owners to cap sewer lines and terminate electricity when a building has 70% or more windows or doors boarded, makes the building less usable. You want a ready-made building for tenants to be able to move into. This is counterproductive to that measure. It increases the cost to reactivate or get the building in good standing to bring a tenant in, or to even show it for that matter. It directly conflicts with the city's own requirement, as I've stated, for the move-in ready status. So again, my ask is, how does removing all the utility infrastructure make a building more likely to be reoccupied? In my opinion, a better solution would be a commercial vacancy registry. I don't disagree with that. But instead of the punitive rules, what we could do is create a public vacancy registry that helps connect building owners with prospective tenants or developers, and it promotes transparency and reuse. So again, my question is, why have we not created any type of registry or taken more proactive measures rather than going directly to punitive measures and track the vacant commercial properties? Another concern is the insurance requirements. So we're requiring owners to furnish the city with insurance for vacant buildings. I believe that to be excessive. When we asked on a project, when the sewer line was being repaired on our property.
If you could just finish up, I'm gonna have to be fair to everybody.
Yep. We asked the city to provide us as additionally insured. We were told by the Director of Public Works, by the direction of City Council, that that was an unreasonable ask. So my question is, how is this a reasonable ask on behalf of the city in reciprocation? So I'll forward a copy of this, as I have much more to say, but my suggested alternatives would be to postpone adoption for this and allow stakeholder engagement. Conduct a publish a vacancy impact study so that it's transparent for everyone to take a look at. Create a voluntary registry to promote properties, offer, which to the point earlier, some grants for building improvements. I think that's amazing, but I will say, to second what Mayor said, $40,000 goes quickly. And to define clear objective enforcement standards, I didn't get to that, but there is some enforcement concerns in regard to some subjective language with code enforcement.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other public comment at this time? Downtown?
Yeah, Old Town Board, Brad. Hi, Council Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to speak because I understand from both sides, of course, it's a really hard one, but at the same time, some kind of enforcement, if we do not do something, they'll just drag their feet and get nothing done. So the fact that we're actually talking about it is great. We've been talking about it and the tenants have not, or the owners of the properties have not activated on the things they've said or mentioned they would do. So being in this situation now, I think that somewhat of an enforcement, whatever that you guys come up with, I liked her idea as well, but I think there's going to be costing that comes with this. So you guys got to charge accordingly to make sure you guys get covered on that. So, but I do think something to move the needle is important here. So that's
Thank
my
you.
comments.
Anyone else? Do we have a representative from DBA that wants to give some sort of input? I'm sorry, go ahead. You can, Billy. Sorry.
William Pryor, Auburn. Just a couple things. I know we have had vacant buildings, and I talked about this 2 weeks ago or last week, whenever we were here. As for the signage, we've always had signs and attempted to run our buildings. We've had tenants, potential tenants come to us. We've had meetings with city officials they have, and it's just too much for them to move in. Like the bank building, it may be empty, but they were paying rent. So US Bank didn't leave the day their lease expired. They paid for 2 years afterwards. What about that? It's occupied. We pay the insurance, we pay the water, the landscape guys come. That's just how it is. A vacant tenant. The vacancy rate this gentleman brought up across everywhere. Everybody's driven all over all over California, probably the United States too. I actually looked it up 5 minutes ago after you mentioned it. It's 19.4%. What's the vacancy rate in Auburn? It's definitely not 19.4%, because the city in their brochure here says they're going to generate $5,000 at a cost of about $400 each for the registry, or 300, whatever it is. That's about 15 vacancies. So I think we're under the parameters. So the problem is some people don't like a few of the spaces that are vacant. I don't know what you can do about that, but the registry is the best idea to put together the developers and people that want to come here together with the landowners or subleases. I mean, some people are subleasing their property because they closed and they have to. The city has given us 2 people in 10 years to rent buildings from us. Potential. Mike Holmes actually wanted one spot for where Saki Sushi is going, but we had signed a lease 2 weeks after he had wanted a company out of Grass Valley wanted to come look at it for a restaurant. The other one was Stand Up Paddle Boards, wanted to rent the spot where the CrossFit building was at. We negotiated with them for 3 weeks, and next thing we know, the city of Auburn is taking them to the airport. So now we're in competition with the city too. So I don't think this is a good fix right now. I think there should be a registry to put people together instead of all this overreach, and see how it goes from there. I mean, that's my opinion. Anyway, I don't think you should vote for it, or should kick the can down the road and get some more people involved that actually own properties. All the people that weren't informed, I should say. All righty, thanks.
Thank you, Billy. Any other? Okay, well, I see DBA, they can, if, I'm the liaison for DBA, and I want to say that this vacancy ordinance was brought up many times by our director, who goes there to every DBA meeting. There was a lot of, actually, there's not much discussion. Everybody nodded their head, read the ordinance, and there was, I can't recall, and please correct me, there was not one person that said this is a bad idea. Now, that's just, again, that was at a general meeting, and it was at a board meeting. It was at a couple of board meetings, maybe 3, and a couple of general meetings. So again, that's my representation. DBA, Downtown Business Association, I think supports it based on what I saw who was at the meeting. Are they all here? No, but they supported it. In fact, they were very excited about it when it was first brought up, and I haven't heard anything negative since then. So I don't know if Councilman Holmes, you're the liaison for the Old Town. Well, we just heard the Old Town Business Association. So, okay. So with that, then I'll open it up for further discussion with City Council. I personally just want to say I've listened to my fellow city councils with questions, and I know you're going to give some comments. Personally, I'm open for some minor changes. I do think it's worthwhile. I see a need for this to go forward. I see not a need, but mostly a request from our downtown, from our constituents, from people coming to town who say, you know, Auburn sure has a lot of vacancies. What's going on? And will this solve it? Maybe not. Will this help it? Hopefully. Is it punitive? No. Is it meant to be helpful? Yes. Jonathan, our director, does a beautiful job trying to help people get into our businesses. We need of a vitality here in town. With things have been stagnating. The people that are coming forward here do try very hard. And the fee that we are asking, again, is hopefully something we can work together with. Will there be exceptions? Will there be some minor tweaks we may have to make? Yes. I think we all heard our director say that we're not policing. This is for all of us. This is to create Auburn to be different so that we can, it's been for years, we've been seeing I think Councilman Holmes said, the Livingston building has been vacant. The offices are vacant. We don't see people going in and out of those offices. When I grew up, there was ballet. There was all kinds of things going in and out of those offices. There was a restaurant up there. So, again, I don't want to pick on any one place. I think a little incentive for me would feel good. And especially if I'm working closely with my, the director, who's a really nice guy. And personally, I just feel like I think it'll give Auburn a little push that it needs. And I really would like to see something go forward. I like the way this is drafted. I could live with extending the 90 days a little further, but leaving in the part, the places that I think you said, the places that have been vacant, they should start almost immediately or within a very short period of time. And again, if there's other tweaks that the city council would like to entertain, I would love to hear them. But for the most part, I think we've discussed this, brought it out. And again, I just think that I'm ready to move forward. I think we need to try it. And again, revisit it in a year. I'd be happy to do that too. So,
I think everybody.
Councilman Holmes.
Yes. I'm wondering how much discussion has gone on between the city and the Chamber of Commerce, and whether the Chamber of Commerce is.
The chamber, I'll just have to say, they go to almost every downtown business association meeting. They're there at the meeting, so they're very aware.
And what are they doing to help us?
To help us?
Yeah.
They help a lot. They help. They help. Our director helps. I mean, and so can people improve? Absolutely. But I will not sit here and say that our chamber and our city is not helping with when people come into town and need a place to rent. They do everything they can.
I also go to the board meetings and report out to them there too, so they're aware of this as well.
So any other, yes.
Based on the public comment, I have a few questions. Do we have any, I mean, I know sorry, Jonathan. I know it would have to be self-reported. Do we have any idea of vacancy rates here? How do we figure that stuff out?
That's correct. We would have to pay a data service to do that, unless we paid a staff member to audit our business licenses and go out and cross-reference those things. So I don't have a number. I can't give it to you. As one person stated, we have a pretty low vacancy rate, which I would agree with. One of the biggest problems I have from an economic standpoint is we have somebody that comes to town looking for a spot and finding an available spot. They're vacant, but are they available? That's the big rub there. Or is, like it was pointed out, maybe it's the stigma with whoever the property manager is, or those things that have kind of kept them from making that investment. And so those are some of the issues I ran into, but I can't honestly give you the vacancy rate at this point.
And a registry would just be probably people who choose to do that, which are probably not the people who were having the issues with because they're not very actively involved in, as far as I understand it, correct? It would be.
I would speculate the same.
It would be most likely those who are already pretty involved in trying to do that kind of connection. What was the other one? Do you have the contact information for all the property owners within town? Because there was talk about people not knowing that this was happening. What kind of outreach did you do specifically to the property owners and not just to because I would imagine a lot of the associations are people who are actually in the building as tenants and not so much the property owners?
We've property owners that attend those as well. So besides attending all the meetings, doing the past 3 public hearing or public outreach things here, talking to the owners of the building, which some of them I neglected to talk to directly, but we have had this conversation with a number of them about what we're trying to do. These are not the ones that normally have a vacancy, except for there are some of the ones that we're working with to try to convince to do something with their buildings before this, which we did spend a lot of time with. And so we have for the long-term vacancies that are not available, we have spent lots of time with trying to get them convinced to do something. And so, and they've been warned that this was something that would come out, although one of the individuals doesn't answer my calls anymore. So, but yes, no, there's been a lot of outreach. Can we create a mailing? We could. I don't know what that would look like, but it would be a lot. And it would also, now with postage, cost quite a bit to do. But that's something that's an option as well.
So just to give my thoughts after having heard all of the different comments and feedback and all the work that you've done, I really appreciate all the work you've done on this. I know you've got a lot of other things going on. To be perfectly honest, I don't think that this is a priority for me, and it doesn't feel like it's something that's going to really help like we would like it to help. And so for me, I don't think right now is the time. The economy's not great. Ever since COVID, there's been a challenge with filling business properties as it is. I know that there's some members of the community who are interested in making sure our businesses are filled, but I feel like as the economic director, I would rather have you and the planning and the folks in our planning group work more on economic development and helping business owners than doing the enforcement for something like this that I don't think is actually going to turn around those folks who are really bad actors, and we'll just penalize those folks who are really trying to fill their buildings. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to vote for this at this point, and I would really like to have us focus on things that will actually create revenue, because that's what our city needs right now, versus us continuing down this road. I just don't think it's going to get us what we need, and I think we have limited staff time, and I just don't want to spend any more time on something like this. I'd rather spend our time trying to move our community forward rather than penalize people for having vacant buildings. I just don't think it'll be helpful at this point. So that's where I'm at.
So, I mean, I think I hear what you're saying, but you're basing it kind of on an assumption. You don't want to give it a try for a certain period of time because it may be helpful. If
Yeah,
it's not helpful, it's something we can certainly.
It's still going to take staff time to manage the program. That's what we're making people pay for. So that's going to be, if it's 15 businesses at 2 hours of business, that's quite a bit of staff time that I think that would be better used on other projects that we really need to move forward. So at this point, based on,
I estimated 4 businesses based off of the quarterly registration. So
they
'Cause
may be managing 4 businesses a year.
So there's some ones that have already been complained about for a while that were the immediate need, and those would be the ones that would be pursued out the gate. That's where I came up with that estimate.
So we only have 4 businesses that people are complaining about right now. Is that what you're saying?
We have 4 that we would
properties.
likely be going after because of the amount of concern from the community
Okay.
immediately after the required periods, of course.
I understand the concern about a couple of properties, but I just really feel like I feel like there's better ways of us spending our time. And I feel like there's other ways that we should be promoting Auburn and getting things going that maybe could help to bring in business versus doing this. And it would be more beneficial for everyone and not so punitive. So that's just where I am right now. This is not my area of expertise. I've taken in both sides and heard all the comments and got all the feedback from staff. And that's just where I am right now. I feel like there's other things I'd rather focus our time on.
Madam Mayor. or-
Councilwoman Davis or Holmes
Yeah,
or
that may-
Dowden Cavillo?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm happy to speak.
Okay.
So thank you very much. And first I'd like to thank staff. I know that we've spent a lot of time on this issue. There seems to be a few issues here at City Hall that go round and come back and forth. And I appreciate the amount of time and effort that's gone into this. I am concerned about the current ordinance. I would want more flexibility for those that are working hard to rent. I am concerned, the market is what it is. I also understand that there are some property owners in the city of Auburn that it appears that they are not actively pursuing tenants. Or perhaps the perception is at a speed that we would like them to. And so that becomes very difficult. I understand the difficulties for the businesses that are located near those properties because it detracts, and I appreciate that as well. But I would want to see more flexibility for those that are truly, and I understand that this is complaint driven, but really, even though it's complaint driven, you're out of compliance if you're not registered, even though no one's complained, right? So, I mean, it's kind of like the old, well, the speed limit is 65, but don't get caught. Am I breaking the law? So I respect that. I think the 90 days to me was too short. I do appreciate the fact that you've indicated it's easier for enforcement. And when you push it out too far, it becomes difficult. But to be honest with you, I am aligned, I believe, with Councilwoman Riddell Harris on this. I would prefer to be more proactive. We don't have a lot of funds. I wish that we did. I like the idea of a commercial vacancy registry, but what makes me nervous about that is is a voluntary thing. And there are some property owners, one in particular that is a property owner that owns lots and lots of property all over the state of California, that probably has no interest in that. Well,
I mean,
that's the other
who
thing.
manages it?
That's the other thing, is that the commercial vacancy registry, in my mind, to have something like that, there would need to be some kind of a fee as well.
Yeah.
It would not be something that the city could offer for free, because we don't, we only have a finite amount of money. And we do assist our businesses, trying to move tenants their way, but it's also not our sole job, right? I mean, property owners have some responsibility to get tenants. Certainly the city can work together with them, but it's not just our responsibility to drive tenants to them. I want to be able to work with them. But I mean, I'd like to maybe explore a commercial vacancy registry, but I don't know how we would mandate that, because then you have enforcement, and.
Well, okay, so rather
But
than
I
change
haven't-
direction, I mean, I just want
Okay,
to
so
have you follow up on
I-
how would you amend this?
Well, that's my issue, is that I've said that I would want to see a lot more flexibility built in. And this is, for those actors that are truly trying to rent their buildings, 90 days is just too short to me.
Well, can you give us a idea?
Well, I originally said 6 months. That was what I said, but staff have indicated that that's difficult. So, and again, I would like to see our efforts in a more proactive way. I do understand that there are those property owners, but again, there are provisions in here. I would really want to go back to the drawing table a little bit. And then as Councilwoman Riddell Harris mentioned, we've got so many things to deal in this city that we need to work on, and just keep going back to the drawing board over and over again is redundant as well. So
I agree, but I think this is an issue that, again, was raised by a lot of our constituents, okay? So it was driven a lot by our constituents. And so I think if we can look at this and carve something out that we all feel comfortable with, would be important to at least explore. And what I hear you saying is that there's 2 areas that you're concerned about. One is the time, and number 2 is the buildings which are actively in good order and actively trying to rent out their building, and you want some concession for them. Is that,
Yes,
are those
well, I
the 2
would,
main
but the
issues?
issue
I'm
is
trying to
that-
get to the bottom.
yes, but the problem with that is that you still incur costs. And so I don't know how you fix that, because I would want them to be maybe exempt from then reporting and exempt from paying the fee. But there's still costs that we incur, and I don't want to have the city incur costs that we don't have money coming into. So it's
Maybe there
kind
would-
of one of those, I don't see a solution. That's, I guess, there.
Do you have an idea, any suggestions for that?
Well, it goes back to the 2 different scenarios. You have the long-term owners that aren't doing anything with their property and not creating an opportunity for somebody to rent. And I also say, we do have quite a few in town that, are there, but that aren't actively available for rent. And with some, let's just say, photo studios in town refusing to even open it. So you create this condition where you have a very vibrant downtown, but one property owner or 2 property owners can make it, it detracts from that vibrancy. You had the same thing when Mickey's Boots was sitting there for a while, because it just, it's that black eye there and trying to motivate people into those spots. So you have the one situation where you're trying to identify, okay, it's available for rent. You do create a loophole by doing that. But looking at it, how long has it been vacant for, and trying to address those long-term vacancies may be something we could come back with more directly, but that was not the original direction given, so.
What about those people register one time, like you said, one time a year? And then,
But there's a lot of requirements. The other issue too is those that, let's say you have a building with 12 spaces and 11 of them are rented out and one is vacant. I don't think it's fair to say, okay, well, you have one vacancy out of 12 and it's been vacant for a little bit longer, maybe because it's the corner one with no windows and it's really tough to rent. And now we're going to put them through this, you know. The other thing is enforcement. I mean,
the other, okay,
well, I just want to, like I said, talking about this, but I'm concerned about enforcement. At the end of the day, what are we going to do? Take the building? I mean,
well, before you answer that, would you feel comfortable, and is it, okay, is there something we can do, like put in a clause where enforcement and registration is at the director, I mean, discretion in some regard, in some instances? How would that wording be? So just answer.
So that's already the case. So like all other code enforcement matters, there's a code enforcement officer assigned to particular topics. That's either the code enforcement officer who's in the police department. It can also be anyone else designated by the city manager. And so it could be a director, it could be a staff member. And that person is always exercising discretion in whether or not to enforce and what level of enforcement, which could be anything from a warning letter to a notice of violation to a fine or a penalty, and then up to more serious enforcement if that were ever warranted.
So to piggyback on that question, then if there was a building, 11 offices were rented out, one was not, would it be at the director's discretion not to have that one registered?
not
Yeah.
really.
Well, it would be at the director's discretion whether to enforce the code against that property owner based on a single unit vacancy, and also under the direction of your city manager too, not just the director. So you like any other provision of your code, when it's violated, staff is making a judgment call about resources and whether, you know, the severity of the violation, what your priorities are, what your priorities as a council are.
So just to be clear, to answer my question then, that the director can say, well, 11 are rented out. Looks like they're trying to rent this one out. I'm not going to even make them register.
Correct. I mean, you could choose not to enforce the code. Yes.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of discretion. I don't know if that makes you feel better.
No, because I mean, then we could say the same about anything that we do in the city and what requirements that we're going to require and what requirements we're not. Where do we draw the line? There's a building permit that's required. Are we going to decide, well, it's a little tiny building, maybe we're not going to require that? I mean, I just am a little, I do understand the enforcement and that you can elect to take, you know, but going on the record and establishing an ordinance with that in mind, I don't feel comfortable with that. I just don't. I mean, if this is what the rules are.
We shouldn't be establishing an ordinance with the intent to ignore it.
That's right. I'd rather not have an ordinance.
Okay, Councilman Holmes?
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I've said everything I wanted.
Okay,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Davis?
Yeah, and thank you again, Jonathan, for all of this. This ask predates my being here, so I've tried to catch up on as much as possible. I agree. I don't think a punitive measure, ordinance should be the focus. I would love to see your time spent going out and filling these buildings and these vacancies. I like what you said around, the locations that have been vacant for a long time, that those should have the 90 days and maybe a new vacancy gets 6 months. That seems like a balance between what we're looking for. But my true focus, I want to see vitality in this city. I want to do right by the businesses who are there and are trying to get people through their doors. If you own one, if you're in a business and the rest of the building is empty, or if you're trying to start something, Livingston building, and there's no people coming by, I want to find ways to get more people in town shopping and make it vibrant. And the missed sales tax revenue that we are missing by not filling these. It's not just about whether or not the building looks good or looks bad or is blight. It's the fact that we're missing revenue to help our city do all these revitalization projects. It sounds like there are holes and issues in this ordinance. And I don't have a solution for them. But I do think we should be very transparent whether or not we are enforcing something. So in your position, if this didn't go into effect and you had this time instead, what would you do with it?
Fun question. I do many things, so I would probably complete many of the outstanding tasks.
Yeah, like.
Many of the outstanding tasks. I mean,
This is on your to-do list that you're not doing because you're doing.
well, after this, it'd be, implementing a grant program that was just given out this morning and go engaging the businesses and letting me know that that's an option and trying to figure out those solutions to keep them going and moving forward. So that's what we do every day.
Well, I think it's a valid question, but I think you're putting our director on the spot.
I don't have that kind of time.
I mean,
Right. There are so many things.
he's worked hard. He's worked
do.
hard, and he does a lot of things, and I think he'll continue to do a lot of things. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but again, I think that this I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you have party that is registering, you'll be more in constant contact with them and may be able to help them even more than you do now. I would think that that's part of the incentive and the opportunity here that we have to look forward to if we pass this. And I guess the thing that just sits with me is that we all have to put ourselves in the shoes of people that are working hard downtown with their commercial property, and they're trying to have a nice business, and right next door to them is a vacant building that's just sitting there and not doing anything. No one's going in and out. We have another one down the street that is empty. We have the Gold Country Mall that's half empty. It used to be a vibrant little spot. It detracts from the current businesses, and I don't think that's fair. Again, I like the fact that we want to create this opportunity here for our businesses to work together and to be in constant contact with our city manager. I don't see, again, if we talk about staff time, I think that's something that, of course it's going to take staff time, but again, we're being compensated, and it's the return, I think, is going to be far greater. I do see, the fact that I think we heard from several individuals, this is creating an incentive, an awareness already. The fact that we brought this forward has created a buzz in town. But is it enough? Is it enough? We don't know. So my position is I do still think we need to try this for a year. Try it for a year.
The other thing I wonder about is that some of the property owners, there's, again, they may just choose to register in perpetuity, and that we don't get a vacancy filled. A property owner is going to do with their property what they're going to do with their property. But it may just be that somebody chooses, okay, well, quarterly we got to register and pay a fee, but I don't want to, I don't want to rent my space out until the perfect person comes, or maybe I just don't want to rent it out, period. And as I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I'm just saying is that.
And I guess
there's
that's why
nothing
I'm
that would
saying.
preclude that from happening, is that somebody could just choose, I got to pay this fee. It doesn't mean that they're going to actively pursue a tenant.
That's why I think
the
we should
proactive
review it in a
part.
year. We should review it in a year. And it's 1 year. And if it's every 6 months, it's 2 registration fees. It's 2 hours of our time twice a year. If we do it every 180 days, it's a little more. It's, again, and we're just assuming the worst. I would assume that it would have some sort of effect. Other cities have done this.
I would be interested in what you said, if there's a way that we could pursue the long time vacant buildings and some way of focusing on them, because that I think is really what is our concern in town. I think that the folks who are trying to fill their buildings is not necessarily, there's too many different situations that can happen from what I've heard so far having to do with renting buildings that you can't account for in something as black and white as something like this. And so I don't necessarily feel comfortable trying to, I don't, it may only be a year, but it's money and it's real and it's somebody's property. And I take it very seriously that we're impacting them when they may be having financial challenges due to the economy as it is. And so I would rather focus on the bad actors than focus on something that's this broad that maybe has negative consequences. Yeah, it may create an ongoing interaction with our property owners, but as somebody who is the head of customer service for a utility, it may create a bad experience for people coming in paying money they don't feel like they should be paying, and that's not what we want to create at the city. So the thing I would be interested in, if you think there is a way of tailoring it to really focus on those folks that we're worried about, then that's what I would be interested in. The folks who probably wouldn't necessarily care about a $300 fee, but really are the ones who we would like to be able to get that tax revenue by filling those buildings that have been vacant for a long time. That's what I'd be interested in. But so I feel like this might be just too broad and too all encompassing, and especially with the current circumstances, I don't know if this is the right time for that.
That's why I wanted some kind of big flexibility, because I agree. I think that there's just too many elements that, impact that market that we just don't know about. And again, 90 days, there's a million things that could be why it didn't rent in a 90-day period. So I don't know. Jonathan, do you think there's a way to, but then there's back to the drawing board and more
No.
work for you.
No,
Put it at the top of the priority list
Yeah,
at some point,
It,
maybe.
it depends. The bones are there. I mean, we've already spent the time to develop this. We have definitions that can be applied. We can apply standards that are in there. I don't think, I mean, if that was the direction of council to pursue those that long term and figuring out what long term means and then applying it to them specifically, I don't think that would be a huge amount of staff time to do that.
Okay, then, do we need a motion here?
But-
We have more
We're-
public comment.
Mr. Mappa?
And we're in the middle of a public hearing too, so we have to decide
Pardon
on
me?
the matter that's at hand.
What would you say?
We said we would go back to public.
Yeah. I said
Yeah,
it.
no, I know. I just,
We
anyway.
can't move on yet. You're right.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Mappa?
And you did bring up points that justify me to comment. Thank you. First name Gary, last name Mappa. I've lived here since 1960. I'm very familiar with Auburn. I do live in Applegate, but I have a business in Auburn. And I'm a realtor. And I look at this ordinance as a loophole looking for a place to happen. I do appreciate the fact that we do have the short-term part of it, the 1 year. Let me get the right word for it. A sunset clause. Is that the right word? And we also have an exemption process so property owners who can document good faith efforts to lease, sell, or improve their properties are not penalized. And we do have probably more property owners like that than we do the property owners that we don't have control over what they do. Part of my request would be a list of the properties that have been identified as the reason we need to even talk about an ordinance. I think that's the critical path, is to reach out to those individuals, not the Pryor family and not the other families in town that maintain their properties, even including Sandy and her properties. And having lived here as long as I have, I've seen vacancies on every street throughout my whole career of living in Auburn. With regards to the Livingston building, if you guys all know the Livingston building from way back when, it now is owned by a real estate management company. They've already complied with the ordinance. They're trying to lease it. They've got signs up. The prior building has signs up. I know they're trying to lease it. There's a lot of buildings in town that have been vacant for a long time. And for some reason, they're under construction 12 months later, maybe 14 or 16. And that would be maybe Nancy's Records, if I remember right, back when I was wandering the streets of Auburn, when the smoke shop was selling cigarettes to 16-year-olds. So part of the burden is on the city itself, too. So we see vacancies, and a lot of people might be afraid to even go in to submit for a permit for fear of how long it's going to take to get through the process. And back to Nancy's Records, I don't know how long they've been under construction. Is that my 3-minute warning?
Yes.
So I'm not in favor of the ordinance, but I'm not against it. I have mixed feelings. But I don't think adopting it right now without releasing the locations for us to vet who they are, why they're in that position. And in closing, I am a realtor. I have a group of 60 realtors, inspectors, lenders we meet with once a month, not all 60, but everyone's on an email list. And I offer up our group to meet with you and see if we can
Again, I
come up
just-
with solutions
I have to
to
be
help
fair.
minimize the impacts of what we're up here for. And I'm sorry I took more than 3 minutes.
It's okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so back to council. Do we have any direction or motion for our director? We were talking about, and I don't know, again, if this is, it's a little unclear if if this ordinance would pass. I don't know. You were against it? I don't know. I mean, I can make a motion about this ordinance and let's see what happens and then we can go from there. So I will make a motion that, I'll make a motion to reintroduce and waive first reading of the ordinance creating a vacant commercial building ordinance for the city of Auburn, and by resolution, adopt fees related to the vacant commercial building ordinance. And I would like to make that motion and just amend the time to 180 days. For 180 days for everybody. And that's my motion. Do I have a second? Yes, no? No? No second? Okay, that fails. So do we have direction for staff to come back for any sort of long-term, not long-term, what's that called? The long tenants who have been in their buildings for a while, some sort of long-term vacancy incentive.
Right. Well, long-term vacancy registration, same type of setup, I would imagine.
Yes.
Only looking at those, like Mr. Mappa said, looking at those specific properties that really are those that are the issue with.
I would request that be put on hold until after the form-based code and the general plan are done, because I don't feel like that's as high of a priority as those items and other things that are going on in town. So I would say maybe we don't bring those back until those 2 items are over, and then you could.
I would
And then
disagree
we
with
can
that.
go back and have a discussion and see what we really want to do. So I would say, for me, I just would like to have staff time be put into other things for the time being.
And I think that we should bring it back as soon as possible because we've already have the wording, we're talking about it. It's something we have been brought up to the public for over a year. And I think now is the time. If this council does nothing, if we're going to just keep bringing things up and then putting it off for years. So I would like to see it come back sooner than later so that we can at least discuss it.
What I would really like to see myself is I would like to see our property owners, they know who they are that are here and those that are not, that have vacancies, multiple. I would like to see them and come in and have a workshop with you and talk about their vacancies, talk about what they're doing to promote them. I mean, I would like to see some kind of action happening with those, our property owners have been put on notice. I mean, clearly there's been parts of this community that are fed up with the fact that there are a lot of vacancies. Some buildings are not maintained. We hear about it. We've heard about it so much that we've asked staff to bring an ordinance back. And so I think people are aware, but I'd really like to see a collaboration, not just going back to our corners and doing our thing, but a collaboration with our property owners and again, maybe have a working group or something to say, what are you doing? A roundtable. When I was the chair of the Public Employment Relations Board, we had a docket and we had a meeting every month to talk about what are you doing with your litigation? What are you doing? And having that discussion so that you're also in the know and you're knowing what this property owner is actually looking for. And, I think that might be a proactive thing. Again, I don't want to take tremendous amount of your time, but it puts the responsibility on everyone. We hear part of it's the city, part of it's the property owner, but I'd like to see a property owners working group, if you will. That's what I would really like to see.
I'd be
And
interested
I
in
think
having
that's
a-
good. I think that makes sense, except that it assumes that our director hasn't done that, and I think he has. But with that being said,
I'd like to have a report.
I don't think it hurts for us to have them all in one room and for our director to say, there is hopefully direction to come back for some sort of registration fee. What do you guys think? What can we do? How are you doing it? And in the interim,
And I'd like to see a city council member in that, and I'm happy to do it. But so that it's clear, it's not just staff driven, but you have a council member that's there, that's listening to these property owners, seeing what they're doing, hearing what they're doing. So we ourselves, I'm not saying all of us, but I don't want to volunteer anybody, but so that we know that they're actively pursuing and not just saying.
I would like to have a workshop here that's agendized so we can all go.
Mhm.
I think it makes sense for us to have a dialogue. It's hard in a council meeting because there's only 3 minutes of public comment and we can't dialogue and all that stuff.
Ask
And
questions.
many other councils have workshops where they do either the hour before the meeting or schedule a special night where they sit down and talk through things with members of the
Okay,
community to better understand. And I would be in favor of doing that.
and again, I've been to meetings with, our director has met with the landowner you were talking about that owns property all over the state. Well, he wasn't there, but he sends his people. And that was like probably when you first started, or a couple years ago. Nothing's happened. Nothing's changed. So in any case, so to be clear, I would like to give direction to staff to meet with property owners again, and get an understanding of what their progress is, where their progress is going, what we can do to help, what they can do to help, and I'm sorry, did you want to answer?
What their difficulties or challenges might be.
What their challenges are and what we can do to help. And yes, I do. I think, plus
Maybe
I would like
after-
to wait on that. And I think there's some sort of, you have to have some sort of privacy, I think, too. I think it'd be good for the landowners to work separately with someone
And then
not
have
be
something later.
identified.
I agree. Yeah.
You can go, you could be one of the two. Well, and again, maybe we'll have an update and then we can, I think we should, after that, drafts, and I would like to direct staff to draft something for long-term tenants. And we can table it, but if we have something drafted to come back, I think that's at least it gives us some, some
I think
real,
it's-
what do you call it? Power or whatever you call it.
I think one thing that when we have discussions with the property owners is that there's an understanding that obviously the council's looking at this and if if the council's not satisfied that there's been enough action that's been taken, then it doesn't mean that we can't revisit it another time. I don't want to necessarily direct staff to come back with a long-term. I'd like to take the first step and really engage with the property owners in a room and you may have done this, but this is now at the council level, and this is the council saying, not just you've done a tremendous job, Jonathan, and you're going to have even more time to devote to economic development very shortly. And I'm excited about that because you do great work in that arena. But I just, we're talking about this at the council level. This is incredibly important. And I really want those property owners in that room. And, if they're not in that room, then that sends a message to me too, that maybe they don't care. So maybe then I do have to look at taking some other measures. I want to see a commitment and I want to see what's happening and go from there. So.
Yes, maybe you have a suggestion.
I just trying to figure out the direction for those that don't go to the meetings and won't attend the things I've been doing. Because, Mr. Pryor can attest to it. Many of the property owners have been in the room, even had a facilitation with the Main Street program. They came through here and talking about the needs and what would help them out. So staff did get a lot of input from that. It's really dealing with those property owners that aren't moving off the ball to try to
I
figure out
think
that.
that's a message though, because we're saying here at this council that we want all those property owners to come to the table and show us that you are devoted to getting your buildings rented and that you care about the community and that you want to see that happen so that we can be vibrant. And if you're absent, that sends a message too. Then we can decide what to do. I mean,
Okay, so what I hear is make best efforts to meet with the parties who would be involved in a long-term registration fee. Then maybe give us a report back in the near future, and then we can go from there. Is that?
no, I don't know if it's those that are long-term registration fee. My direction would be to meet with property owners,
That would qualify for that sort of,
I don't
criteria.
want to mention that piece of it because I want to be proactive first and see what happens. And then if, we can do something later, but I really want to be proactive. I want to see the the property owners committed. And I want to see what we can do. What can we do together? And I want to see who shows up and who doesn't. That's important. And then we can go from there. See how we can help each other. But I don't want to direct staff to look at the long term until we have that discussion first. Because maybe everyone's going to come to the table and maybe we see exactly what's
and
happening.
so I guess, but I don't understand what you're saying. Who's long-term?
I'm
Long-term?
not saying long term.
Oh, you're
I'm
saying
saying
everybody?
property owners. I'm
All
saying
property-
property owners that have vacancies.
Okay, vacancies, got it.
Yeah. Property owners who have vacancies.
Okay,
But I
okay.
mean, if you don't have a vacancy, you could still be invited because you know what? You might have a vacancy. Just because you don't have one today doesn't mean you're gonna, so I would invite,
So more of like a roundtable with property owners.
yes, a working group.
Sometimes you talk about certain market segments and trying to get in touch with them. So this is really just having a larger, well-publicized, maybe even have some kind of advertisement out so that way everyone knows it's happening kind of event.
Right.
So there's.
And it's fine to say, the council deliberated about a vacant commercial building ordinance, but we want to be proactive and we also want to understand their plights and what's
And
going on.
I'd like to see this come back in a relatively short period of time if you can. And because summer is a good time to market buildings. So, thank you. And I think we have pretty clear direction.
There was a discussion about a council member being present or how? No.
I'd be
Okay.
happy to be present. Does anyone else want to be
I-
there?
I
Do you
said I
want to
would.
be there?
You don't want to invite everybody, then I'm fine with you. If you guys
Yeah.
want to be there, that's fine.
You don't want to be there?
Well, we can't have three. So
You
it's-
can go. You can go.
it would depend on the day. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of,
We'll leave
I don't want everyone to. not-
Why don't we just leave it at who, 2 council members will be there? Whenever you have it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, that brings us to the fiscal year 2025-26 financial budget, final budget.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Gretchen Johnson, Finance Director. Tonight, I'm going to present the fiscal year 25-26 final budget for your adoption ahead of the July 1st fiscal year that's starting. Wait for the PowerPoint guru to Okay, here we go. So we are here to adopt a resolution to approve our fiscal year 25-26 budget in the amount of 37,105,709. This action also includes setting general fund reserves at 4.9 million, setting the appropriations limit at 26 million, and establishing the salary schedule effective July 1st, 2025. On June 9th, City Council heard the proposed budget. It was presented and we received some feedback. There was also a position classification plan that was approved and is incorporated into the changes made into the final budget. Feedback received on June 9th were mainly the 4 items there. We've accomplished the 2 that are checked. We've removed committee fundraising requests, and we've reviewed the transit and transportation proposed budgets. Other items include providing options for pension funding solutions and a capital improvement plan to a future council meeting. Changes since proposed budget, the committee fundraising requests will come back for a more robust discussion with council soon. We had planning and building department budget changes related to the position classification plan that was approved. Labor costs in that department increased by 23,825 to align with that approved plan. We also went back and looked at the revenues in the general fund across all of the departments, but there was definitely some room for an adjustment in that planning and building department to be able to not only afford the increase in labor costs, but also add to what we're anticipating our fund balance in the general fund will be at the end of the fiscal year. That revenue increase was the 70,462 based on latest fee collections and projections. So we're doing well in that area. The net gain for the general fund since proposed in that information is another $46,000. We also took some time to look at the transit fund budget because of the dialogue related to the surplus in that fund. And in the proposed budget, we had just shy of 600,000 was showing up as a surplus, meaning revenues were exceeding expenditures. But I had a chance to sit down with the Public Works Director, and lo and behold, there was an expense that was missing in that budget. So last year, or the current year that we're still in, we started to receive some SB 125 TIRCIP funds, and those are new funds that came about through the administration with the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency back in July 2023, I believe. Those funds were awarded to the state. Placer County has been administering, and we've put in allocation requests for how we can go about using those funds based on the criteria of the purpose of what those one-time funds were for. So in this current year, for example, we used $400,000 of those funds for purchasing electric vehicle vans, buses in transit. So the funds that were omitted in error in the proposed budget but are now in the final budget are another project associated with electric vehicle charging stations at the city's Corp Yard of $600,000. So with that fix, there ends up being not much of a surplus after all in the transit fund. So that was a excellent find by our mayor to hone in on that as being not our usual. The other funds in question, similar to that, are transportation and gas tax funds. And there are two things going on. There is what appears to be a surplus collectively of 131,000 for those two funds together for the fiscal year 25-26. In looking at one of our reports that we maintain, and it's actually included in the budget book on page 12, if you happen to have that with you, it's the surplus has to be factored into prior year and where we landed in the prior year. So surplus also is another word for reserves. Reserves are a combination of what's carried over year and from revenues and expenditures and where the fund financially, the condition of the fund. So at the beginning of this current fiscal year, the transportation fund was actually in a deficit status of about $78,000. And that's normal. It's not to be concerned. It ebbs and flows depending on the uses of the funding that we receive and the projects that we're able to accomplish. And it's normal to have things carry over. But my point with that is that the 131,000 in the single budget year that we're working to adopt has to cover that beginning shortfall of $78,000. So the surplus is not that significant. However, there's a small surplus, $30,000, $50,000 or so. Another thing to factor in is, for example, the general fund has a reserves policy. We are wanting to maintain a certain level of reserves in each fund in order to address the unanticipated. Transportation, transit, gas tax, et cetera, do not have policies surrounding their reserves. So any type of surplus or extra funding is considered unassigned for the unanticipated. So it's good to have a certain level of surplus year over year in those funds. Certainly something that I'm looking forward to is developing more policies around all of these funds, especially our larger funds, so that we're clear on the uses of any types of surpluses. And if we do get into deficit status, what we can do about that. This is just at a glance what we are recommending be adopted as our budget. That's our budget by fund. The fourth column from the left is our 25-26 final budget, 37 million being recommended. You'll see our biggest funds continue as our general fund at about 20.6 million, sewer fund 10.3 million, transit and airport averaging about 1.5 million, and so on. And speaking again about reserves, I thought it was a good time, given the dialogue about transit, to hone in on all of the funds reserves as we're adopting the budget. The budget being recommended for adoption is that point in time setting of reserves for all of our funds. We won't know the actual amount of reserves until we get through our fiscal year audit towards the end of the calendar year. But for the purposes of the budget, these will be the adopted reserves for each of our funds. So you'll see that the general fund has the amounts that we saw at proposed budget. Those haven't changed for our economic contingencies reserve, which is still 40% of estimated sales tax, a capital reserve, an employee unfunded liability, both at 500,000, our self-insurance fund, insurance pool, 700,000, and then unassigned at 95. Whatever happens to come to fruition after June 30th, when the fiscal year ends, will impact the unassigned amount there. That's kind of the balancer and what the wiggle room that we have to make further choices and decisions with what to do once the fiscal year closes. And this is the latest multi-year general fund forecast. I mentioned that we were able to increase our projections for our planning and building inspection fees. So that is why our fiscal year, kind of right in the middle, 25-26, is referencing that $46,000 that we are hoping will come in more than what we had planned, will fall into that unassigned general fund reserve balance. And then looking out ahead, of course, into the future years, that includes some normal estimates for revenues that we've been discussing, that we've approved, and that we're projecting with modest increases there. It doesn't include, as in the past, it does not include any additional labor negotiations year over year or any changes, but it does include everything that we have discussed and approved up to date related to July 1st and all of the agreements that were approved on your consent calendar today. Appropriations limit is a requirement we discussed at proposed budget. Nothing has changed with respect to this. We are recommending the City of Auburn's limit be at 26.2 million. However, the city will only receive approximately 14.7 million in taxes. And so we're well under the criteria for the regulation that gives us our cap. Then the final action is to approve the 25-26 salary schedule. And that salary schedule is the wage brackets basically for all of our positions that have been approved and discussed at proposed budget, where the position classification plan was implemented and all of the MOUs and job specification changes that were approved either tonight or to be effective July 1st. And then the final budget position allocation list hasn't changed from the proposed budget. We have 79 positions citywide, and they're included as attachments D and E in your council packet for all the positions by department that have been funded or frozen over the past 3 years. Next steps and questions. So after hopefully the budget is adopted as recommended tonight, we'll update our city's transparency website with that information. And then we'll return with some of those other items that we had discussed at the last meeting, such as preparing the pension liability funding options, partnering with Public Works on a capital improvement plan effort, and returning with the current fiscal year and preliminary results in the fall. So with that, I'll take questions.
I just, not to have you be repetitive, but I wasn't paying real close attention. So you're saying that for the transit fund, it was for electric vehicle charging stations. We did not receive any grants for that. We had to pay. Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, the funding, the external funding, the TIRCIP funds that the Placer County Transportation Agency has administered, that's our portion. So it's not necessarily a grant.
600,000 for charging stations?
We have not done the project yet. That's a planned project at the Courtyard. And we'll be reimbursed in full from that.
We will be
Yeah.
reimbursed. So then we will be up 600,000.
No. So what happened in the budget is that we had budgeted the revenue side, but not the expenditure side. So we were to the good $600,000 because we had included the reimbursement. Now we've included the expense in the final budget, so we're back to
Oh,
zero.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And you kept in the reimbursement?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from council? I know we've been over this, but.
I did have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry, I hadn't really looked super close at the salary schedule before, and the part with all of the chiefs and directors is confusing because it's on page, oh gosh, the pages are taken off. It's towards the end.
Is it the range?
It's a salary range and
Yeah.
it says step 1, step 2, like they would get step 1 and then they'd get step 2. And so it'd be great if that wasn't phrased that, because normally steps mean that you go from one to the next one. And so that it's actually a salary range. So
Right.
I would like to amend that to actually be a salary range and not say step one and step two, because because those who work in the public sector know that you go through the steps, and there's a implication that you would go from one step to the next one, and that's not what that would
And
be.
it is a range. It
is
is
a
a range.
So it's just with those executive level positions, it's just done differently. And I think that it was just for formatting purposes that they wanted to include it in here, but it looks a little strange. And I just don't want to give the impression that there's two steps for those folks and they would go.
Yeah, you don't go from one to all of
two. Yeah. So I just,
Yep. No, Councilmember, for those of us following along at home, can you give us a page number?
I can't because it's cut off.
It
It's
looks
this
like it.
far into the budget.
Oh, no. Well, it looks like it might
The
be
closest page
page
is 599,
588.
599.
Yeah, 599 is.
Well, it's also, hold on.
Yeah, it's a couple pages in from 599. Oh, 600. It starts after 600.
Okay.
It's in two places though.
It might. So it's just that the end of that, they have all the executive level ones. And it just has the salary. I think it was just done for administrative purposes to kind of fit it in the same one, but most other organizations will have like a high and a low for the salary. And then if there aren't any steps, they'll kind of gray out the steps in the middle for executive level folks. So I just wanted to make sure.
It's on item 17, if you look at the one that says GAN limit, it's in that, a couple pages after the GAN limit.
Yeah, I do see it now.
There you
It
go.
appears to be page 605. And it does refer to steps there. So I suppose I would just get the input of your human resources director too, if she's got any
Yeah,
input on the piece
if
of this.
they are
And then
steps,
also,
then that's good to know, but I would assume that those are a salary
It's a range.
range.
Yeah.
I say it is a range with your pay for performance policy. It is a range. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if we need to amend it. I just want to make sure that that piece is clear.
Right. And I was speaking speaking quietly with eyes with our human resources director. It's fine. We can change it.
Okay, I just,
It seems to be no objection to changing that. So if all council members are in agreement with that and the direction is clear to staff on what the change is, you all can proceed and still vote.
For the directors. Yeah.
thank you. I just wanted to clarify and make that clear.
From council?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you again. I mean, we went from 2 years of a deficit to a little bit of a surplus, and I'm just incredibly proud of all of our staff and the efforts that they made to make this happen, and to congratulate us too. We've done a little bit, but most of it has been on staff's. A lot of cuts were made, and really appreciate it very much. So thank you.
Yeah, very
Really.
fast work we did.
Absolutely.
And got to this place, which is an excellent
We
place.
just vote.
And the future looks promising.
We're just voting.
Any public
Yeah.
have any comments? Do we have a motion? No comment. Motion?
I'll move to approve the budget as proposed. Oh, did you want to make a comment?
Yes,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a question. It's my understanding that any of our boards and commissions are not budgeted in this.
They are budgeted. Their normal annual contribution from our general fund is still in the budget. We're at the same amounts as we were in the prior year. It's just their funding requests, or excuse me, their fundraising requests, which is a new process this year, has been pulled out for more of a dialogue
Oh,
with
okay. All
council.
right.
But
So they got $5,000.
Yeah.
And the work plans also.
Okay. Is that good? You have
Yeah,
any
that's
further
fine.
questions? Okay. Comments? Councilman Home, comments?
No, I'm
You're good?
amazed at all the work that went into putting this together. And, I think you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move by resolution to approve the fiscal year 2025-26 budget.
Second,
We have
With the amendment, I assume.
with the,
Yes, with the, with the clarifying amendment on salary ranges for the directors. Mhm.
Roll call, Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes.
aye.
Mayor Martin.
Yes. Thank you very much. That passes.
May we have a
Yeah, why don't we take a 5-minute break? Good try.
5 minutes?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, really? I guess is it really? Okay, I'm gonna have to check it out. But I mean, if it's a big enough thing, okay, that's good to know. I know what I'm doing this weekend. Oh, boy. Oh, I could only imagine. Oh, really? Oh, that must be amazing. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. They're enthusiastic. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. Wow. Bueller.
We'll continue. City manager's ready, so we will go. Okay. Very good. Okay, so the next council business is the number 18 solar project at the city facilities. And Mr. Dean, can we have your input?
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This one's pretty straightforward. No controversy here at all. We'll just do this thing really quickly and get it out the way. Tonight, we're here to talk about the potential for solar installation at 3 city locations. Just to give you a bit of background, at the May 12th meeting, council discussed how to move forward with the NEM 2.0 application we submitted to PG&E and what needed to happen to make a couple of key deadlines. That includes the NEM 2.0 compliance deadline, which is April 14th of next year, and also to meet the federal investment credit deadline, which is set to expire or could potentially expire the end of this year. Following that direction, staff issued an RFP on May 15th, looking for qualified contractors to install the solar at 3 city sites: Fire Station 2, City Hall, and the Police Department. The scope included both roof mount, carport mount, and everything in between. And everything needed to meet the current codes, utility interconnection standards, and also to comply with the previously submitted NEM application to PG&E. In your attached package, you'll see Exhibit A, which gives a quick overview of the proposals. Exhibit B breaks down things into more details, indicating what contractors submitted what. I'll have you know that after reviewing everything and considering the current conditions of each site, here's what staff came up with. Fire Station 2 has a relatively new roof and is in good shape. No major work is needed there, which means a minimum risk or surprise cost, indicating that other things have been done there to make this project profitable for the city. The Police Department also had a newer roof. The only section that needs attention is the area above the gymnasium where some of this equipment may go. We don't expect there to be any extensive expenses there, and we've already requested bids for this work, and we'll have specific pricing on that by July 19th. In fact, we have bids out to get the roof done at City Hall and at the police station, but we'll know the true cost of those things on that date. City Hall, on the other hand, presented more of a challenge, even though we got competitive bid proposals for it, including roof mounts and carports. Staff's not recommending moving forward with this at this time. Even though we have an active NEM application that as I mentioned previously, is set to expire April 2026. There's some key reasons why we probably shouldn't take this approach. The building still has old single pane windows, some of them behind me. Many nights we stand here and I feel the cold air coming off my back. Most of the lights have not been upgraded to LED. You can look above it and you can see we're using old incandescent lights. And there are 11 HVAC units that support this building, 10 on the roof and 1 ground mounted. Each ranging in cost from $15,000 to $45,000 to repair. The roof needs replacing, and none of the solar bids actually included that cost, which is by design because we didn't necessarily want this solar contractors to sub that out and add additional costs. We've ran into scope creep on our previous projects, so we're trying to get away from that. Given the building's age, being over 100 years old, while this isn't an important issue, this isn't the sole reason the roof, why we're not doing this. It's all the aforementioned things that probably makes this portion of the project not a very good portion of the project for the city to pursue at this time. While carports could be an option, we only recommend considering those after upgrading the building's energy efficiency. Carports are also require additional infrastructure and have higher upfront costs, which could mean a longer payback period. So that was also something that was taken into consideration by staff when we were making this recommendation. It didn't come easy because we truly supported getting the solar at all the locations, but financially and it just didn't make sense and compared to some of the things that we needed to do. Now, despite these hurdles, City Hall, there's still an argument that could be made to move this, to do the work here. And that's primarily because we have the NEM application in, but I don't think it's a strong enough argument to move forward with that. And also the potential of losing the 30% tax credit, which is set to expire at the end of the year. Again, the savings for that tax credit wouldn't necessarily offset the additional cost that would be associated with this project. That said, staff recommends focusing on police department, fire station projects for now. Given the city's current financial picture, facing the City Hall project in later allows us to use the available funds without taking on new debt. It also allows us to give time to put together a solid capital improvement program that lays out the City Hall upcoming needs, like repairs and replacements and prioritize projects based on the things I just mentioned. I believe I've given the council enough information here to kind of make some decisions. I'm here for questions and I can answer and provide any additional information as required.
Just
I
one
have
thing
a
to
couple.
point, sorry, just one thing to point out too. Staff's recommending that if council chooses to proceed with just the police station and the fire station, that we use different pots of funding that we have existing. So those would be using $206 from the newly created capital reserve amount. That would leave a balance of $182,000. The unassigned fund balance estimated for the general fund as of June 30th, that's $95,307. And then the capital facilities fee has an unassigned fund balance available at $50,000. So adding all that up, that's enough to cover the cost of the police station and the fire station. Alternative project for City Hall, in order to fund that, the city would need to go out for funding through a loan. Our finance advisor, Christian, who worked for North Cross, Ellen Ash, who did the presentation during the ESCO project, went forward, talked to the three finance entities that we used for the ESCO project. Bank of America gave us a potential rate of about 5%. So if you look at a potential loan of about $800,000, 5% interest for 8 years, the annual debt service payment is about $131,500, with an interest total paid of $202,000 at the end of the 8 years, for a total project of $1.05 million. So just over $1 million. So our concern is issuing debt. That's another concern that the city has. Issuing debt would basically immediately offset the benefits of the ITC due to the cost of the interest. So another reason why staff is recommending doing the police station, fire station, rather than going out for a loan, because we can't, the cost, the savings that we would see would be eaten up. So.
And I, additionally to what the city manager mentioned there just a moment ago, I'd like to add that, during the process of evaluating which direction we should go with this, we sat with Mr. Kramer and Mike Lumberg to do the evaluation. And it was initially thought that we should move forward with all three aspects of the project. And like I mentioned, we really thought that would have been beneficial for the city. But after looking at what some of the costs would be and with the payback period for a loan, which we would have to do. And most banks don't like to lend on such small amounts, especially to government entities. So we would have probably received an unfavorable interest rate, making any savings that we would have gotten from the ITC negated. So after those internal conversations, we decided to move forward with recommending just. Yeah. Yes, I know.
That who make that?
Let him finish, please.
Oh, no, just.
After those internal conversations, staff decided to make the recommendation of doing the police department and the fire station. Understanding that when we did speak with the members from the Sustainability Advisory Committee, we did consider moving forward with all three, but we didn't necessarily have the opportunity to tell you things that have transpired after we had those conversations. So with that, I'll leave it open for questions.
Before I open it up, could you, I don't know who came up with this chart.
Question on that. too.
I did, so I can answer those.
Thank you. Then, yeah, could you, I think we can all understand, and just to make it a little bit shorter, that the, on the far right in yellow, for instance, the fire station, the total annual cost for electricity is $22,768.80. Is that right?
That is correct. And
Okay.
for the police department,
And, so what is the, I don't understand, the payback is estimated at, what, 5%?
no, the payback that's in years. So your payback for the total project would be estimated at 4.35 years.
Oh, I see. So
Yes.
2 times 4.35
Yes.
is the total amount of the project.
Right. And that would be based off of today's numbers. Remember that PG&E is planning to increase rates. So the payback would actually be a little lower than this, but that is just based off of
What
today's
you,
numbers.
what you have in front of you.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And then, but that doesn't assume that we'll get the 30% back.
Well, this is assuming, no, this doesn't include the ITC credit.
Right, okay.
So there, yes, this
Okay.
number would be lower.
Right, right. Okay. Okay. And,
So just to
Then-
clarify on that, Madam
yes, go ahead. if you
So
have another
the,
question.
so then in other words, 4.35 years to pay back for the solar.
For
to-
the fire station.
Or for the fire station. And then 3.69 years for,
Police.
for the police, correct? That's
You-
how many years it would take back to pay off that. Okay.
Correct.
And I'm
If we go
assuming-
with the recommended contractor.
And I'm assuming for the city hall, the two numbers, the 5.44 is for rooftop and the 7.73 years would be for the
A
carport.
combination of both.
Oh, combination.
Yes, so rooftop and the carport, keeping in mind that that number does not include if we have to replace the roof
Or financing?
Right.
Is that,
or any additional financing charges,
Okay.
because remember
so
the
that's
two,
just cash if we cashed it out?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's important.
so that's a much larger number.
Okay.
If it was fine, yeah, got it.
Okay. And then the,
This one too? Did you have questions on this?
yes,
Yeah.
did anyone from city council have questions on any of the other handouts we just received?
I did.
I don't. but-
I just wanted to confirm then for Foothill, where it says, performance, they're anticipating that the solar would pay 80 or would provide 87% of the power that's utilized there, correct?
No, so so with each system design, there is a total system loss. Foothill system would provide 87% based off of design. So if you look at, I don't have that chart.
Here it is. You want mine?
Okay, so explain.
There's an inefficiency in any solar system and it varies depending on the type of panels, how things are connected, things like that. So it just tells you how it's not having 100% of the energy from the sun that goes, it's only having 87% of the energy that actually gets utilized based to the losses of the system.
Got it. Thank
That
you
is
very much.
100% correct. So
Thank
Fifth
you for
Hill,
the clarification. I
think
couldn't get that from this, so I.
Paul wants to say something. Did you want to finish that?
no, so I was only pointing out that Foothill proved to be the most efficient system, and that is primarily because they've put together a design based off of all the components that we spec'd, whereas the other companies used like components, which that was a choice they made. I don't know why.
Okay. And then any other handout
I have a
questions?
couple quick questions.
Handout questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick questions on handout. What for, similar to what Alice was, our Councilman Downing-Covio was saying, what percent, were you trying to get 100% coverage with these, or is there a certain, what percentage of the usage were you shooting for on each of the buildings?
So it was 100% based off of what was submitted to PG&E during the NEM application. So the NEM application at the time tried to get as close to 100% as we possibly could.
Okay.
So the direction to these folks was to maximize that.
Okay. So it's about 100%, give or take.
Yes.
Okay. Based on past usage and not.
Yeah, based
not
off
what
of
we-
23, 24 total annual usage.
Okay, so based on past usage, not what an efficient building could be if we did all the upgrades.
Correct, because if we upgraded all the efficiency things that would make this building more efficient, the solar requirement would reduce. So we would actually save money on the installation cost of the total solar, whether we go carport or roof.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, can I have mine back? Are you done? And then while you're doing that, I just wanted to say, staff, did a really good job. I was able to attend one of the bid interviews, and that was very informative. I really appreciated that. I think, the more brains, the better. But also Glenn, he has 40 years at Menlo Park as a civil engineer, information technologist, human resources. He was able to be there. And then Mike Limburg, who's an architect. And of course, our city manager was there, Tia was there, and I think that's it, right? For the one I went to. And so I think it was really all the minds were working together. It was great. I think whenever you have bids, it's a good opportunity to get as many minds as you can, because it's a big decision. And I think there was a consensus, correct me if I'm wrong, that Foothill came out top in terms of which entity to use.
Yeah, and more importantly, that they meet what we were required by the Public Works Contracting Code. They turned out to be the lowest bidder, because if you look at the chart there, the lowest bidder, 585, dropped out because they could not meet that number after that. And then the second lowest one, which was one of the ones we interviewed, unfortunately, they didn't use the equipment specified. So that kind of made their bid not in line with what we asked. So it was an unfortunate thing, but I would love to do work with them in the future, because they seemed like a very good company, to be completely honest.
My only other couple little questions here is, could you give us some positives if we did do a carport eventually, or if that's something we want to think about, the carport, some of the positives of that?
Of course, I'm happy to do so.
And then also, if you over solarize, so to speak, we don't have all the upgrades yet. What would you be able to utilize the solar for?
Yeah, there's an abundance of positives to putting in a carport, right? Like, obviously, the biggest negative about doing that at this particular time is our financial situation and the cost of putting.
Positives, remember.
Right. I do have to point out those things as well too. But with the city being forced to go to all electric vehicles, overproducing is never going to hurt us, because we're going to have more electric vehicles parked in our parking lot, right? So there is no loss there. So while we would, if we put in the carport and put in the roof mount solar right now, we would be overproducing once we get everything efficient. We could still utilize that once we start adding vehicles to our fleet and things like that. So there's certainly benefits in doing that. It's just not something that I would recommend at this point.
Okay. And then does the shade for the vehicles help at all?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, an abundance of benefits. Like, I would park my personal car underneath there, so it's not so hot when I'm going home. But I mean, we would save the dashboards on our vehicles. There's many things, right?
Okay. I mean, I don't have a carport solar, so, and, okay, then I'm just going to open it up for more questions. Again, we've talked about this for a long time, but we have any more questions to?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry. There's been a lot of different iterations of the PD solar arrangement. What exact is there solar on the front building and then all the rooftops and then a carport? I'm just trying to remember what the.
Yeah, so the recommendation, so there's two recommendations from Foothill here. We're not recommending moving forward with the carport portion.
Okay.
PD has a very large rooftop
do.
surface, right? So the roof portion that's closest to City Hall is brand new. It was put in 2017.
And it's south facing, so.
And
nice.
so there is the potential there to put solar on there right now
Okay.
and just start utilizing it. There's a small area over the gymnasium that's on the far side. It's a flat roof that is seal coated. Now that needs some upgrades, but again, it's a small area. We had some contractors come out this morning and take a look at it. We're going to get bids back for that on the July 9th. I don't think that that's going to be an extremely expensive endeavor. So we've decided to move completely to rooftop in that particular area.
Okay, which
Yeah.
is normally more cost effective. Thank you. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, do I have any public comment?
Good evening. Glenn Kramer, Sustainability Advisory Committee. I sent the council some information with regard responding to the staff report. We're not real excited about putting solar on the City Hall roof. It doesn't seem to be real efficient because you don't have a lot of area. So we're recommending that you go back to staff and say, come back with a carport as which was originally designed by all three consultants who looked at it before this rooftop sort of came out of nowhere on the City Hall part. And it provides an efficient array placement, provides shade for cars parked underneath, allows for easier placement of electric car charging, and allows the city to get a more useful life out of the existing City Hall roof because you don't have to replace it immediately if you don't want to. The other thing it was touched on is that you need to get all the energy efficiency done first in order to properly size it. But when you look at it, you should be looking at it in total, which means that you've got fossil fuel sources that you want to convert to electricity, which can be done with your heating and air conditioning systems. So in many respects, your usage of electricity is going to go up after you get, even when you do the efficiency for lighting and things like that. The other thing is you're paying cash for the two systems. So you're going to have a revenue stream coming in to pay toward any loan toward a City Hall carport structure. And what staff has not done is extend the benefits of this over 20 years so that you can see the long-term benefit of doing this. You see a 4-year and a 3-year payback, but after that, you get total benefit of a solar system. I think that was it. And staff has locked in the costs, so there's no tariff issue. The current Inflation Reduction Act, in its current form of elimination, has projects started by the end of 2025 get 100%, 2026 get 60%, 2027 get 20%, and after 27 is zero, and that's of the 30%. So it's 30%, it's 100% of 30%, 60% of 30%, 20% of 30%, then zero. So if you do it now, you can save that money, and it's like money in the bank. And I would recommend that you seriously consider the carport as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Mike Lindberg with Sustainable Advisory Committee. And as was mentioned, we were very pleased to sit in on the interview process with the vendors. I learned a lot of great things, and a lot of the potential options that could be explored and the benefits of pursuing this system. One thing we didn't have the advantage of was the financial analysis that was touched on a little bit when Sean was talking. And if I understand it, you're able to finance the two projects out of city funds. In other words, not go to any kind of financing mechanism. And then the paybacks are in the range of 4 years. Did that also include an analysis of the monthly revenue stream that would come in from solar over the next 20 years?
That's something that we just received, the council.
So you're literally in the black for the next 20 years if you pursue those two projects.
Yes.
So then, to hit on Glenn's point just a little bit, wouldn't the same logic apply to small financing needed for the City Hall carport that would add to that total revenue stream over the course of 20 years, even though it would take a little bit longer to recapture the finance costs of that? Because theoretically, going back to the Schneider Electric proposal, they did say that the savings on energy expenditures, currently a debit to your city fund, would finance the cost of the system. So in other words, you're not inherently taking on a risk in terms of having to shell out funds on a monthly basis to pay for solar. It's paying for itself.
Mhm.
And then when the payback happens, that money is basically a revenue stream. So it makes sense, I think, to us in the Sustainability Committee to extend the logic that says solar is a revenue generator, and that the more you put in, the better. And that once you start realizing that revenue stream, you can pay for the energy efficiency upgrades for the building. And that doesn't have to be an expense on the city account. So we kind of see it as extending the logic that you've already embraced for the two projects and adding it for the small carport addition for the City Hall portion. Get as much solar as possible while the NIM 2 is still valid. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I had a question.
Sure.
Again, so using one of these charts that we just received today, so thank you very much.
You bet.
Right now, we're spending about $109,000 for power at both the at police and fire.
Correct.
Right, so, okay, 110, give or take. But we're not going to generate 100%. We're still going to have some cost, even with solar. We're not generating 100% of the power.
No, that is correct. We're not
There's still gonna
generating,
be some cost for power, so we just need to understand that.
and there's also
Please
that
why.
initial $450,000 upfront cost.
Yes, but there will be an ongoing, because we'll still need to purchase the power that we're unable to utilize for solar since we don't have storage. So, thank you.
Well, that's de minimis, I would think.
I'm just wanted to make sure that I was reading that correctly.
Okay. Any other questions?
No questions.
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Or Councilman Holmes?
The, how about the corporation yard? What's the status there for solar?
It's already generating. We have 192 panels on the corporation yard, and with the $600,000 we discussed a little earlier, there's going to be additional infrastructure put in place for our fleet. So we have those monies set aside by the TIRCIP, SB 125 funds to do that. So there's more energy efficient projects coming your way that's outside of this one.
Okay.
Are we doing comments now or?
Yeah, public comments. Okay, we're doing comments. Yeah, I would like to hear some comments. I'd like to start by saying, I'm very happy with the fire station number 2 and with the police department. I think it was well thought out. I appreciate that we're able to pay for this upfront. I also so I'm very supportive. I think that's just, and I think Foothill did a beautiful job. I think the bidding process, the interview process, and the thought that went into that was just very professional. And I do see such a opportunity for us to really realize a lot of savings. I do really appreciate, I wish I had seen this sooner, the annual expense and then the payback in years and the payback in terms of numbers. So we will realize right off $110,000 savings for the city, and after 4 years, that will be it'll be much higher than that, and actually probably closer to 3 years, because if we get our 30% rebate, the cost goes down from 400 to 300. So that's an amazing opportunity here. So I think the suggestion to have those the resolution for those two makes perfect sense. I don't personally have enough information for just disregarding the city hall at this point. I think there's a lot of assumptions. I'd like to see some more data in terms of the carport. How, again, I think there's great opportunities for the carport and for the solar for City Hall via a carport or even via the roof. I don't think we've had an engineer go up and really look closely at the roof. I think Mike Limburg works with a company that has an individual who did all the calcs for ARD, could easily come over and tell us the calcs here. We could also have, I know Rod Tompkins, he's local, and he is the one that did the upgrades to this, and I believe that, he thinks that the load could be manageable. But in any case, I do know we need a new roof. So I would like some more data in terms of that, and the carport. It makes sense to put it now because we have that 30%. We have the NEM 2. We could always utilize it. We'll be purchasing batteries, and I would really appreciate an opportunity to just look at the data. Again, I trust that we've, explored this and talked about this, but again, I think having some more data with regard to, and the last piece is again, I can't believe there's not one bank that won't finance a 400 or I think it's going to be $300,000 loan for a carport, or maybe if carport is more like 400, right? So
There's some numbers.
So at 5%, if you look at it and do the math, if you look at that and do the math, really you're over 8 years, you're talking $3,100 a month. And then again, if we have our 100,000 that we're saving with the other two, it makes sense to me too. And I think, as Mr. Lemberg said, to explore the idea of putting a carport or a rooftop for City Hall. Again, I'm not doing this for me. This is for an opportunity for our future. We are not always going to be in a great budget situation. We have to make some decisions and move forward. And I think it's important that we look at this and look closely and not just make some assumptions. I think we do need to, I'd be happy if we had a banker here to tell us it's 5% for 15 years, then I'll disregard it. But if he comes and says we can get a good interest rate and he would follow through with the loan, I think that's something we need to explore. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can add something briefly, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I want to be clear, the structural rigidity of the roof is not what's making me not make this recommendation.
Okay.
I do believe that this roof is structurally rigid enough to support solar. That's not an issue. I think we should certainly get someone to look at it anyway, but I think that that's going to come back in a positive thing for the city, that it can't support it. It's the addition of the other equipment that's up there. The 10 HVAC units and such, and the fact that in addition to those 10 HVAC units, there's also the necessity for a new roof.
So you're saying that that's added cost that we don't want to spend right now?
And that's why the recommendation is coming this way. And yeah, we can certainly look at the carport, but with the carport in the parking lot, we have to take into consideration the ADA upgrades along with the paving. So these are things that are considering. It's not that I'm not supportive of this, because I think this is a great idea, and everything Mr. Lundberg and Mr. Kramer said, as well as you, Madam Mayor, makes a lot of sense, but the other considerations should be looked at as well.
I agree with that.
Yes.
And I think we've been talking about it, you know, sometimes ADA is an issue and sometimes it isn't an issue. So let's just get a definitive, you know, recommendation on if it is or isn't. And maybe that's something we should do anyway. So anyway, I think you're right. I think what I hear you saying is that putting it on the roof because we need the upgrades up on there would be at this point. However, you know, again, if we're saving 100,000, it seems to me we have some money to do something we really do need to do in the near future. So I don't know, but I'm not going to argue with that.
No. There's no
just-
argument at all.
I'm just saying, I'm supportive. I'm very supportive of the resolution. And I would like just a little more information to come back in the near future so that we can make a final decision and say we're not going to do it or we're going to do it with all the information necessary. Other council members want to say something? Mike, Mr. Holmes, councilman.
You turned it off.
No.
Well, I'm happy to see this moving forward. We've been kicking these solar projects around for some years. And so I'd like to I move by resolution to authorize the city manager or his designee to execute a contract with Foothill Electric for the implementation of solar projects at the Auburn Police Department and the Auburn Fire Station Number 2, also known as the Geetson Station, in an amount not to exceed $462,513 which includes a 10% contingency.
I'll second that. Discussion or vote?
I think some of us didn't get to say our comment.
Okay.
so I
Yeah, we
think
can
it's
discuss under the motion.
You can discuss. Councilwoman Davis, would you like, no comment? Okay.
Okay, so this is this is only to approve the PD and the fire station.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Nothing to having to do. with
Resolution,
the-
right?
Okay, then that's all. I don't need to comment. I'm good with that. Let's.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a comment. So, we have been talking about solar for many years. We've spent at least $100,000, I'm sure even more on this. And, years and staff time. Menjel, I don't know what your time card looks like because I know you've spent a lot of time on this. At this point in time, I'm willing to support the police department and the fire station, and then I would honestly like to put this to rest. We have spent so much time and energy, and there are so many things that we need to do in the city and that Menjel needs to do. We need a CIP. We need to move forward. We already approved solar at the Courtyard, and originally that was all that I was going to support. But I will support the police station and I will support the fire station because we're using our funding. I'm not interested in any additional debt for the city. Any money that we save after we've paid back for the systems should go to purchase energy efficient facility, HVACs, new lighting, what have you. Further our electric vehicles. That's where the savings should go. And we need to have money for the capital improvements, the reserve, because remember, these inverters are going to go out and we're going to have to replace them. And there's going to be other maintenance. And so, yes, there will be savings, but I think that there are sufficient and lots of other needs for those savings. So I'm good with the police station and the fire station moving forward and putting this issue to rest for now. So Thank you very much. I said my piece.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay, so the vote is, the resolution is for just the fire station and the police department. And and we have a second, do we have a vote, resolution then? So we have to do it by,
Sure, I'll roll call. Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo. Holmes.
Aye.
Mayor Amara.
yes. But I would like to add one thing, and we can vote. I don't know if we got a consensus or not. I would like to see it come back in the near future that we have a little more information on whether or not we can finance the City Hall and any other pertinent information for City Hall. We don't even know what the cost is. If you do, excuse me, the carport. If you do the math, you save $43,000 annually. And if you do that over 20 years, someone do the math for me. It's a lot of money. Well, in 10 years, it'll be 430,000. And so that's a lot of money that we're throwing away. And that doesn't include the 30%. So by the way, I did the math for what we just passed, and we should be very proud of ourselves. Over 20 years, we will save more than $2 million. So that's pretty significant for our town. So in over 10 years, $1 million, and that is actually very low estimate because as our Public Works Director said, PG&E is going to go up, and that does not include the Inflation Reduction Act. So, we stand to get in return over, $1.5 million to $2 million in 10 years. I mean, that's significant. So I'm very proud of our council. But I would also ask if there's a consensus that we can bring back just a more detailed information on the carport, because this is our last chance in terms of getting that reduction and the NEM 2. And again, if you look closely at the payback, our annual cost for this City Hall is $43,000. So, I think we need to think seriously about it one more time and with more information in terms of how we can finance it. So do I have consensus?
I
I'd
don't.
like to talk about it.
Would you like, okay, go ahead.
So at this time, I would not support us moving forward with City Hall. I've worked in this industry doing.
But wait, I'm just asking you, if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt
I'm
you
not
because,
interested in getting any more information on this.
okay, because,
I'm not interested in pursuing this any.
the Inflation Reduction Act will expire soon.
I work in this full time.
Okay.
I
Well, you work in
explain that to people
electricity,
all the time.
but
This is
so do
true.
we all have backgrounds.
I know.
Okay.
And when you have a background in something, you get to talk more about it. And this is my background. And
Yeah.
what I'm saying is.
So I'm only,
I don't-
the ask is to bring information back.
I
You
think
don't want,
Councilwoman Riddell Harris
Yeah,
should be able to finish her
Just a
point with
minute.
all due respect.
the ask
Point of
is to
order.
bring information back. So if I hear you right, you don't want the information.
And I'm allowed to explain why.
Yes, you are. And you already explained because you work in the field.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Thank you. So I don't think that it's worthwhile bringing back because I really want Menjel to spend his time working on other projects. I think that that's important. He's worked on this a lot in the past. And as far as it goes for here, yes, we can we can save money with solar. We can also save money with energy efficiency projects. And best practice in the industry is do energy efficiency first before you consider doing renewable energy. Does not preclude us from doing renewable energy and solar in the future. We just won't do it with this particular NEM rate. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years with rates. There's all kinds of craziness happening in the industry right now. Yeah, we may the storage, but the main thing is I trust staff to make the best decision for what we are doing. Menjel knows this building. He knows the complications of this project. He knows his workload moving forward and how much work it would be to proceed forward with getting more information on this. And there's many other things on his to-do list. And I'm ready to, we're going to have 3 buildings with solar on it. I think that's a good start. We can start with that, see how it goes. And then if in the future we decide to add more, we're welcome to add more. But I'm ready to move on to a new topic. And with knowing what I know, we need to get this building sorted out first, and then I'm open to renewable energy, so I'm not interested in pursuing it any further. Thank you.
So I don't think it was an ask for Menjel either. It was partially financial. We don't know the finance. We don't know how much it would cost. Do you know how much a carport was? Do you know the bids?
No, but Menju would have to put out the bids. That's his job.
No, there were some bids already.
Menjo manages those projects, and he's the person responsible for organizing all that.
Not-
so it
not
would
the
involve his
financing.
time.
Okay, but anyway, so you don't want any information okay, what about
I'm good.
Mr. Holmes? I know you don't. Are you interested in having information come back?
No, I'd like to, CIP and, other projects.
Okay, okay, so did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. Okay, then we will not pursue the city hall. But I object to that. I think we don't have enough information. So I just want to go on the record saying this council did not want to come back and get more information so that we can take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act and NEM 2, and that will be lost forever. So anyway, so there's where we at. Okay, now we will move on to the next item, which is the future city meeting cancellation. Staff is recommending by motion cancel the July 28th regular meeting. Staff further recommends the council discuss any additional summer cancellations and take possible action on these proposed cancellation. So we discussed this briefly last time. I personally am in favor of the July 28th cancellation. I think one summer meeting is appropriate. We've done that in the past. And two, I would not be supportive, especially 2 in a row. I think we have to look, again, our job here is for the public. We are public servants. Our taxpayers pay a lot of money. Things come up, and I would never recommend or be in favor of 2 meetings canceled in a row. So with that being said, we can move further. I don't know what other your position is.
I'm fine with canceling the July 28th meeting.
Okay, Councilman Holmes.
Well, I think we need to make a motion.
I think we're doing comment first.
He can make a motion and we
Oh,
I'd like to make a comment.
We need to do,
can comment after the motion.
you can't, well, we need to have public comment before you make a motion.
Pardon me?
You need to have public comment before
yes,
you make a motion.
Okay, public comment then. Do you want to comment right now?
I would. That's okay.
Do you have a comment? You can make a motion in a minute. I have to open it up for public comment.
go ahead.
Okay.
I just wanted to say it's common practice for councils to take off often 2 meetings in order for staff to be able to get their work done and staff to be able to schedule the vacations ahead of time and council to be able to schedule summer vacations as well. So it's not at all viewed by most other cities I've worked with as something that we're not doing our civic duty. It's something where normally you would plan it at the beginning of the year so everyone can know months in advance when they're able to take their vacation. It's often done in the end of July, beginning of August, because that's when your financial budget's just been approved and finance needs time to organize that anyway. And it takes a lot of work and energy from staff to prepare staff reports and all that kind of stuff. So it's a common practice. It's not, I wouldn't view it as a negative. I'm fine with canceling 1 meeting, and I'd be open to talking further at the beginning of next year about canceling 2 so we can make sure we plan our vacations appropriately. This is not a lot of notice right now.
Yeah, one of the things that
I would not be in favor, but yes.
one of the things that city clerk and I talked about is having a council meeting calendar approved at the beginning of the year, so we don't go through this each year. I don't think that's been a standard practice, but we need to do that. So we'll do that at the beginning of 2026. Just locally, cities that cancel, so Loomis typically canceled a meeting in August, although they haven't done that for the past couple of years. It was always, when I was there, it was always in August. They only met once a month. Lincoln doesn't cancel anything. Rockland cancels both meetings in July, and Roseville cancels the first meeting in July because it's close to 4th of July, I think, more than anything else. So it's kind of all over the board. There is typically at least 1 meeting canceled during the summertime, though. Typically 1.
Did you have a comment?
No, I definitely support having a calendar ahead of time because most of our things are, 6 months out for family activities and just the capacity to encourage families and parents to be involved in city council and government. This would be really helpful.
Okay, then do we have a motion?
I'll move by,
Need it. Did you
Yeah,
ask,
public
did you do
comment.
public comment yet?
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment? Okay, do we have a motion?
yes, I'll move that we cancel the July 28th regular city council meeting.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes.
All right.
Mayor Amara.
Yes. City manager report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So considering the time, just two quick ones. Fireworks are banned in the city of Auburn, so the Safe and Sane fireworks are not allowed in the city. Instead, go to watch the city's fireworks show at the fairgrounds on July 4th, obviously. And then our city clerk has been, city clerk / management analyst has been working on AV audio and video upgrades in the chambers here. So that starts on this coming Wednesday. And then we'll be getting that done. Hopefully, well, it needs to be done before the next council meeting, obviously. So, but that's starting quickly here.
Our AV people are up there dancing, just so you know.
Yeah, they're excited.
Future agenda items, discussion and identification of topics that require attention in upcoming meetings. This section allows council members to propose new ideas, unresolved issues, or projects that need further planning or discussion. Anything?
I'd like to just say that we need to get our strategic planning on the schedule, hopefully for fall, so we have enough time because we couldn't get it together for spring. And we need to talk about priority setting and making sure we're all on the same page. I think that would be helpful for staff.
I think we've been, talking about that for a long time. And we also need the CIP list. Okay, so city council committee reports, I think, but due to time, is that okay? Or does anybody have something to report of urgency? Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting.
Well,